Welcome to Biggest Geekus. We're your hosts. I'm Randy.
And I'm Joe.
This is episode 44 of our podcast. The date is Wednesday, July 7th, 2021. How the heck are you, stranger?
Good. We had a week off.
Mm-hmm.
We missed the big event.
Yeah, the big kerfuffle.
Kerfuffly.
Yeah, I've gone up and down myself about how I felt about it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about it in the negative plane today, but it's not going to be as irate as I originally was.
I'm more
the community in general, just the broad community. I found it kind of stupid on both sides. We'll get to that though. So you're being snuck upon here. You're getting snuck upon. Sneak attack.
Okay.
Jen's boogieing.
Yeah, she's boogieing.
All right, cool. All right, but we're going to play tomorrow night, which would be cool. So we'll get to that. But got some call-ins, don't we?
Have some call-ins. Yes, we do. Let's get to that. All righty.
Oh, one down.
Yes.
Hey guys, Jason here. The Anchor issue is even worse than you think. They have a separate development team for the Apple app as well. So the Apple app doesn't work the same as the Android app, which doesn't work the same as the web interface or the web page. All three of them are different, apparently done by different teams. So like the Android app, I guess, gives you notifications when somebody listens or adds a message. You know, if they add your message to their podcast, I guess it gives you a notification. The Apple app doesn't do that. So yeah, it's even worse than you think it is. Anchor's been broken for a long time. If you can't find somebody on there and you let them know that, typically customer support has been pretty good about if they're contacted, they will make sure that podcast is searchable, but the creator of the podcast has to reach out to support to get that done.
Oh, like that, don't you, Joe? That's even better.
Yeah. Another thing I like is that your face is frozen.
I don't get that. You're not. I see my face moving, so
I do not.
Huh.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Anchor has some issues. And today, I sent out a couple of messages. I don't know if it was Anchor. Okay, there you go. You're back to moving.
Both sides, my beautiful face.
I don't know if it was Anchor or if it was SpeakPipe because I used both. And then all of a sudden I couldn't hear anything coming out of the Anchor app. And normally when I have a problem with an app, you can force it to stop and restart it. And all is well in a lot of cases, but it wasn't in this, and I had to restart my phone. That was fun.
So John Large uses over at Red Dice Diaries, he uses SpeakPipe. Is that just a messaging service, or is that also a podcasting type host?
No, it's just a voicemail thing. You can it's just for voicemails.
Because I can only access his really well on my computer, not my phone. But I think my phone's getting pretty old, so that'd be it.
Well, mine is old as phones go. Only it's an S9.
Oh, mine's an iPhone 8. Mine's an iPhone 8, so that's probably older than yours.
A little, yeah.
Yeah.
It's one generation before mine. I think for a while the two companies were about the same numbering wise, but now they're up to the Galaxy's on S20, I think. Not that it did all the intervening numbers. It went from 10 to 20.
It just didn't want to be connected to linked with the iPhone or something.
Maybe or they might even be up to 21. I think they might be trying to get the same numbered year.
I don't know where the iPhone is. I want to say 12, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's a Samsung issue, an Anchor issue. I'm going to guess Anchor.
Yeah.
Mainly because they have all kinds of other ones. But
according to Jason, if Jason's right, it probably is Anchor.
Yeah, there's other ones. Anyway, can complain about the Anchor app all day.
All right.
So yes.
Next.
Negative material plane. The other thing I've heard with Wizards of the Coast is that, and this is all rumors, but potentially that, D&D Beyond and potentially even Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds, where people have rented the digital rules, those might go away when Wizards starts up their own thing, because all that is just you're just renting rules when you get those electronic things. It's like Kindle books, or if you quote unquote buy a digital movie on Amazon, you don't own that. You just have it as long as they think they're going to let you have it, and they can take it away at any time they want without any compensation. Well, I've heard the rumor is that potentially all those D&D Beyond purchases will go away as well, which, since I don't play 5e and I like seeing hand wringing because I'm a mean person, kind of fills me with a little bit of joy, because people shouldn't be wasting money on electronic products instead of physical anyway. But that's not the only thing I have to say.
Preach, Jason. That's right. Down with electronic age. Well, I fought forever the whole CD thing. I still want to get CDs, but I usually do iTunes stuff, so I don't know.
That's even more high tech.
Is it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Obviously, because CDs came before digital downloads.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. Even when iTunes was rolling, still rolling, like less than 3-4 years ago, I always wanted to buy a CD.
Oh, I thought you were saying the other way around.
No, I want to have the physical CD, and I'm such an old, turd now. But I've just recently gotten to where I'm comfortable buying some CDs on iTunes. But it always feels weird, just like playing Magic. I thought playing Magic online when it first came out sounded like the dumbest idea ever. But apparently, some of my friends that play Magic and my cousin that plays Magic, that's where like the pros get in there and they practice their craft and they get mastery of the sets. So yeah,
probably.
Yeah. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm with Jason. It just seems odd to pay for something, especially something like D&D Beyond. I would say iTunes would be the same thing, right? That it ain't, or Google Play, that if they decide, hey, we're not doing this, supporting this anymore, you're SOL.
It could be. I know some of those services allow you to do some digital downloading. It all depends on the details. Okay. But yeah. Yep. As long as you pay and the service is there, you're good. Once the service goes away, I don't know. I have to worry about iTunes that much.
Yeah.
Or some of the other top tier ones, but you never have to worry about a CD unless, of course, you break it or somehow it develops some kind of flaw, which can happen. It's just not very common.
If you're careful, yeah. More from Jason.
Okay, that's a little bit mean. I would not relish in people being hurt emotionally because they rented something and don't have access to what they rented anymore. But I would enjoy the outrage people have because they think they own it because they didn't read the small print. Because I guess I'm an asshole. But the World War II versus COVID is asinine. That's why I'm not on Facebook, because I don't have time for that. I mean, not only you have Pearl Harbor, you have plenty of American citizens affected by the Japanese and the Germans, and the Japanese did, not super effectively, but they did attack the West Coast. I mean, it's not, it's silly. COVID is nothing like a world war, any of the world wars, and the effect, especially once you figure in rationing and everything else. It's nothing like it.
I couldn't go back and finish listening to that guy, but I heard other people who said they did. Look, God bless him, but that's a crazy supposition or statement of here's my thesis on this little writing assignment that the COVID people are suffered more than those that dealt with World War II. Yeah, I agree. That's crazy.
It is crazy. You just take the lives lost, the young lives lost, the damage that it did in many other areas was much worse. I mean, it's bad enough how it happened to our economy, but it wasn't. Our economy was not despoiled because COVID killed a bunch of people and they couldn't work.
Right.
Our economy was despoiled because many people were told not to work,
which was stupid. Yeah. But that's neither here nor there. And then Europe was devastated by World War II. I mean, great chunks of them were just flattened. I mean, Germany alone. Even
Sure,
the
all of the
main aggressor
rubble
was hosed.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yep.
we that's retread. We've been through that.
Yeah.
As far as COVID not being super serious, I know people in their prime, healthy dudes, not fat, overweight people like me, that that didn't die but really had their dick put in the dirt by COVID. I mean, I know people that ICU, respirators, healthy guys. Now, is that anecdotal? Sure it is, but for every so it's I won't I'm not going to get behind the idea if you weren't elderly or young, you don't have to worry about COVID, because I don't think that's true. But I definitely think the media spun up their fear machine and waved the flames, just like they do with everything else, just like they've done with the racial situation. The media's fanned the flames and relish in the media likes to. It's like a buddy of mine from crap.
Well, before we leave this, I know we're retreading again. I don't want to get too much in the COVID debate because we're going to be against a lot of people, I'm sure. And I think Jason's got a reasonable take here. But here's the thing: it's just what are you afraid of? I mean, if someone, I get when we didn't know what COVID was, we weren't sure what it was going to do to people very early on. I get it, but really, once we're into it, look, people are recovering. They just are, and I'm not belittling anybody's friends who died or grandmother who died, but the truth is, you just weren't. I mean, I'm sorry, Jason, the numbers don't bear out the fact that a person in good shape, an athlete, how many NFL players died of COVID? Hold on, let me stop. None. So, I mean, and I'm saying athletes, these great athletes in great shape, prime life, they don't die. People under 18, the numbers were like, you would literally ignore them. There's the statistical anomaly, but we act like it was the most deadly thing since the Black Plague. So, yeah.
Yeah. Not everybody. I mean, some people who were young and healthy still had problems.
Yeah,
some of them died,
it happens.
but very few in comparison.
Yeah.
And so it didn't, the danger does not reflect the reaction.
Statistically anomalous. People just don't, but people don't, a lot of people just, they don't, and I understand it. They don't, and you shouldn't live your life purely by numbers. I get that. But at some point, I don't know. I don't know why you're afraid, but actually, I think I have an idea that will be nothing to do with COVID.
Not you specifically, Jason. I just think
no.
But the general
general's interpretation. Jason's interpretation is reasonable.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. You made me forget which one we played. Let's see.
You already did that one.
Did? Okay.
Yep.
A buddy of mine from Puerto Rico used to say you could take their newspaper and wring it and it would drip blood, because they, love printing the pictures of the shooting victims and stuff on the. Mind you, this is in the 90s, so that might have been in the 80s. I don't know if it's still that way. But point being, the media are a huge part of the problem. They've always been part of the problem, and they're even more so with the 24-hour news cycle. They've become much worse part of the problem as far as fear-mongering. You are 110% correct about that the media definitely has, a huge stake in keeping people afraid. And causing people to go after each other and inciting a lot of this fear and racial hatred.
Bingo.
Am I saying there aren't racial problems in America? Heck no, I'm not. But the media is part of the problem, not part of the solution. That's all I'm saying.
Agree 110%.
Yep.
But let's go back in your show. Let's reel back a little bit, because I don't want to end on negative points. So let's talk about Necessary Evil. I bought Necessary Evil back when it first came out, and never got to run it. I have read it, and I do have Breakout, and I always wanted to run it. But I've run other things in Savage Worlds. I just never quite got the group together to run Necessary Evil, but I've always wanted to. I do think Savage Worlds is an awesome system. It's one of the top contenders for me. If I could only have one system, Savage Worlds would be very near the top. I don't know if it would be my top system as my only system, but it might be. Savage Worlds is deceptively good. And Necessary Evil is a great campaign. So, yeah, kudos, great. great review of Necessary Evil.
Yeah, I think the thing about Savage Worlds is it's when you switch a setting, even with new setting rules, it doesn't. I mean, if we just played Savage Worlds for like 3 years in a row, but played different settings, we would know that system like the back of our hand because we're already getting really good at it, in our current game. And it's just even without it, we played a lot of it. And Jason's right. I mean, there's a lot of value. If I can only have one system to rule them all, Savage Worlds would be very tempting. But I'm mostly a D&D guy, so I'll probably still lean toward some version of D&D.
Yeah.
But Savage Worlds would be probably right up there, probably number 2 for me.
Oh yeah, definitely. Even in fact, I've been I caught up on Jason's episodes of his podcast today.
Me too. I didn't get all of them done. I'm down one.
And in it, I can't remember the number of the episode, but he was talking about potentially running the A team, like a one shot. You play the A team, and I was thinking, and he was talking about using another system because they were talking about other systems at the time, and he brought that up, and I was like, that's Savage Worlds right there.
That's Savage Worlds, yeah, with a bullet, dude.
And I was thinking, hey, that would be something I could put together and run at Cabin Con.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Still Jason's ideas. That sounds good. I've done that.
I'm a thief.
Oh, yes.
Thief of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So thank you, Jason.
Yes, sir.
Moving to John Allen Large.
Hey there, guys. It's John calling regarding your Fighters episode that I'm just listening to now. And I've got to say, yeah, I agree. I really can't be asked with loads of different tables and loads of different fiddly rules for weapons. The way I do it in my old school Essentials game is, by and large, the weapons are just different with how many hands you have to use, how much damage they cause. And any sort of like odd outlying cases, I just judge on a common sense basis. So if like a fighter's in like the second rank and he's behind a dwarf or a halfling or whatever, and he's like, "Oh, I've got a spear, can I like lean over the head and like jab the person in front of him?" I'll be like, "Sure." Likewise, if they do it with any other sort of reach weapon. But I don't really think we need tables of rules to adjudicate it. I mean, let's face it, that's what we've got the GM for, so that they can adjudicate that sort of stuff. Anyway, I'm going to get back to listening to the rest of the episode, dudes. Take care, stay safe, catch you soon.
Yeah, D&D in its the last 3 iterations, I would say 3, 4, and 5, almost tries to take the GM out of it. I mean, I know that's not their conscious decision, but all the rules make you feel like, well, this is how you do that, this is how you do that. You got the minis, you got to move here. Look, I understand it. There's something comforting about that, but with the weapons, yeah, I like that idea. And I'm not sure we've ever even thought about, we thought about it, but I think in modern gaming, most of us wouldn't think about, I'm going to use my spear over the head of a halfling, even though logically you very much could.
Oh, sure. I mean, that's how they were employed.
And that's
in mass combat.
Yeah, the long spears are 15 feet long or 10 feet long. That's if you watch any movie, they're a second rank of warriors. So yeah, John I agree with him.
Yeah. I agree and disagree. I agree that we don't need the massive tables.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't think that, if you want to adjudicate stuff like that as a DM on the fly, that's fine. But if you have a succinct set of rules for your weapons, by hand and then damage, you don't need a DM to say much more. Except for edge cases. And you don't need a bunch of rules for edge cases. That might have been what John was talking about, and that's cool.
Yeah, true.
All righty. Thank you, John.
Yeah, thanks, bud.
Yes, be sure to, if you don't already, those listening, check out both Jason at Nerds Art. Let's see.
VG Variety Cast.
Okay, I always get the words all mixed up.
I finally got it straight.
Right.
And John and the red dice, baby.
I have to sing the jingle in my head.
Right, dude.
To make sure I get it all straight.
Once I got TJ Drennan, we got to contact that dude.
You have been saying that.
I know. I think we need to pay him to make us a little ditty here, especially for the positive material plan, because we're always so positive.
Yes, we're very positive. And John Allen Large over at Red Dice Diaries. And, definitely give that a listen.
Yeah, they're both great.
He's had I think I've caught up pretty much on them as well here recently. And they've had some really good ones here lately. Not that they're not good in general, but some pretty useful ones.
Hey, have you caught Barry at Shadow the GM this past week. He put out a couple of good ones.
I catching up on him.
You should, because he's been taking a little break, hiatus, and then he had a couple, I think 2 this week. Those are really good. I haven't listened to. I started on John's, but I was kind of sidetracked. I've got 2 of Red Dice I got to catch up on.
Yeah, there was one on religious ceremonies I really liked. They did a really good job on that.
Yeah, they usually do. He and Hannah do a great job.
Mm-hmm. And now someone, I'm not sure, named Joe. There's a lot of us named Joe.
Yeah.
Yo, what up, dudes? It's Joe again. A little minor correction on your talk of the Pathfinder First Edition fighter. They don't get bonus feats at every level. They only, right? Whatever. They get bonus feats at first, second, and then every even level. Every class in the game gets a feat at every odd level. So yeah, fighters do get feats at every level, but only get bonus feats at first, second, and every even level. I do play Pathfinder 2nd Edition. We played it from kind of before the playtest came out because we had a dude working at Paizo who sent us the book, the PDF, before it got released. Shh, don't tell nobody. Played it for over a year, got up to like 13th level, then the pandemic hit, so we had to start playing online. I went back to Pathfinder 1st Edition because that's where I'm most comfortable with. And yeah, one more thing.
It's okay. Nobody listens to our show, so no one will find out.
Well, dude, that's funny. He said that's pretty cool that he had a man on the inside. I remember when Pathfinder 1 first came out, I was the first. I did the 0th year, first and second year of Pathfinder Society at Gen Con, and I got the first book on PDF before it ever came out, the core book, and it was so awesome. And I don't tell anybody, I did print a chunk of it out where I shouldn't have probably, and I got it all printed out. Not that I shouldn't print it, I printed a chunk out to read on the plane whenever I went over there, because I had to get the rules down fast because I was even teaching the game. But that's cool, Jason. I was wondering if you'd played 1 or 2. Yeah. Jason, Joe.
If it's built within the rules, I don't really adhere to the idea of something being broken. Trip monkeys, for example, are pretty easy to work around. Flying monsters, oozes, things with multiple legs. There's all kinds of stuff that's immune to being tripped, incorporeal creatures. Hell, I was just playing a high-level monk who had taken an archetype to specialize in tripping, and he got murked by a dragon who picked him up in the air. Dragon was flying, picked him up in the air, flew up 200 feet, dropped his ass. No walls to do slow fall by. Splat, boom, dead. Yeah, I don't know, man. Anything built within the rules, I can just work around it. I've never come across something that someone has built legally, quote unquote, that I haven't been able to figure out. It's like an arms race. It's one of the cool things about Pathfinder. Peace out.
I think that's the point, though, that Randy is in contention with is the arms race. Yeah. It's a little. Some people like it, and I know I like to build a game, but it can be a little off-putting.
And I liked it for a while. And Joe, you make a good point, dude. I mean, you're right. If I were going to play Pathfinder, I wouldn't nerf anything. That's a waste of time. There's too many moving parts. We've talked before that, I think one of the problems we have, and we actually never mentioned this before, we've had a discussion with our guys in our larger group, and what we find is Pathfinder as a game takes a commitment. Now, Joe, he's like a pretty smart cookie. He might be able to do the rules real well, and he may just, or he may be like one of our boys, Lewis, just loves knowing all the ins and outs of it. But if you don't have a group of people at the table, I think with the same, and I think it's possible, if they don't have the same commitment to building, people can get left behind as the power creep comes up. But I'm with you. I'm sure I don't disagree with Joe at all. I mean, I stand corrected. I think you can defeat a trip monkey. I've done it. But I mean, I just don't want to work that hard anymore. And to me, I'm old and it's work. And we played the crap out of Pathfinder.
Yeah, we did.
But, hey.
And enjoyed almost all of it.
Absolutely. I mean, 99% of it, I loved it. Pathfinder was a great, half step forward from 3.5. Absolutely had a great time with that.
Thank you, Joe. Of course, we knew who you were. It was a joke.
Dude, Jason called him Rodriguez on one. Did you catch the one podcast? He kept calling himself Joe Rodriguez. That was sweet. That Joe, dude, he's pretty funny. He's quick-witted.
From the Hindsightless podcast, and there's another one, right? There's another one that he does.
I know he does too. I need to probably listen to Hindsight.
I can't remember the other one, but Hindsightless for sure.
Yeah, I haven't listened to that one yet. I need to put that on my list. I'm writing it down.
Hello, biggest geekers, guys. Randy and Joe. It's Andy. Randy, Andy, and Joe. And what was I saying? I'm completely sidetracked now. I'm in the car, so it's noisy. I've been listening to your episodes a bit out of order, so I only just heard your responses to my gluttony things, and really, you posed some very interesting questions or ideas that I didn't really think through on a conscious level, but they certainly affected our game. And this whole idea of how you get a player to allow their character to do something that's clearly going to mess them up. Because, come on, I mean, these dodgy guys offering you meat of suspicious heritage, well, come on.
You know, in the real life, you have people on TV traveling all over the world eating weird crap.
Correct.
And it's just, well, not quite, it's not supernaturally weird, but.
No, but imagine that. To be fair, it would be easy to give somebody, people do it all the time, they slip stuff in people's food, but especially if you were jolly enough, but if you made them creepy, and I guess you want to give the players a clue, but I mean, let's be honest, that'd be an interesting topic. I mean, if you really want to be real in your role-playing game and try to simulate some reality, you would probably find that you kill characters quite regularly because you would be super subtle as a GM. You would create really mild-looking villains that are just completely, you just can't tell they're villains because, I mean, don't they say things like serial killers? They tend to be like, everybody says, oh, he's like the boy next door. He was really friendly. He smiled all the time. I thought he was a really nice guy. So
the ones we know about.
Right. Oh, there you go. Or the ones we never caught. But back to Andy's comment. Yeah, the whole point is, yeah, you kind of got, the players got to buy stuff. They got to buy into and kind of, we've talked about it in D&D terms. Oh, it's this sword is glowing on the pedestal. What do? Joe goes, I grab it. Because we're adventurers. We're here to get magic swords. Yeah.
That doesn't do any use just watching everybody else do stuff or just look at stuff that.
Or being too, I mean, why be so like, it's just a character on a paper. And
go into Castle Amber and you sit down at the table and you eat the food.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you might suggest something to one of your, party members. You can drink the wine. I'll drink this. I'll eat this. Figure out what happens. Someone's going to keel over.
But if you don't see your character is particularly perceptive, like these guys are kind of weird looking, but man, steaks like you and I, they get us easy, Joe. Steaks, we're in.
Oh, and here's the other thing. In a medieval setting, good meat might be hard to come by.
True.
So
he's talking Cthulhu. He's talking Cthulhu. So modern.
Oh, if it's modern.
20s. I don't remember, Andy. Was it 20s? But anyway,
I don't remember what the.
He's got another part. He's got another part to this too, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see what he's got to say.
So in a way, it really depends. It really relies on your player trusting you trusting them to do the right thing. And in this case, doing the right thing means eating that meat just to see what the hell's going to happen. And in our game, only one player did this. A guy called Barney, who just goes for it. He rides it like it's stolen kind of thing. And unfortunately, really unfortunately, his character died about half a session later. Not from eating the meat. No. He was killed by a golden retriever. We're playing Call of Cthulhu, and he was killed by a golden retriever. Just a normal golden retriever. The fact that he had just broken the leg of the 12-year-old boy who owned that golden retriever really, I guess that says it all. That kind of says it all about the way we play.
Well, sounds like he deserved to get eaten by a golden retriever.
Dude, I like players like that though. Good on Barney. Good on Andy for letting him do it. Yeah, that's cool.
For breaking the child's leg, or for
no.
Yeah.
Eating the meat. No, breaking the child's leg. I mean, no wonder the retriever got after his butt.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andy.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I know his podcast.
Grizzly Peaks.
Right.
Is it just called Grizzly? Yeah, I got it. Hold on, dude. There's no need. We have the technology.
We do. I was trying to rely on my memory. That's faulty.
Danger. We'll go ahead. I'll find it here in a second.
Okay. We've got some more here from Jason.
Expedition 2,
the Grizzly
Peaks.
Yeah. Grizzly Peaks.
Good podcast.
All right. Back to Jason.
Hey guys, Jason here. I don't know if I have it or not. I've read about X-Crawl. I don't know if I've never played it. I don't remember if I bought a copy or not. I would definitely be interested in a DCC version of X-Crawl, so I'll have to watch for that. Great call there. It sounds like a fun game, but it's definitely, like you say, you'd have to do out of X-Crawl events in the characters' lives. You would have to do other things. It's kind of like when you look at a Lucha Libre movie, when we see El Santo and the Blue Demon, we don't just see them in the wrestling ring. We also see their personal lives and them fighting vampires and zombies and whatnot. So you got to mix it up.
I have no idea what that is.
What?
Lucha Libre?
Oh, that's a Jack Black movie where he plays a Mexican wrestler. It's as dumb as it sounds, but it was funny at times.
I knew he had. That's Nacho Libre.
Oh, Nacho Libre. Well, maybe it's something else.
Did he fight zombies in it at all?
No. Luchadors are a character class in the DCC game Weird Frontiers coming out.
So maybe he's talking about some sort of movie genre that neither of us have heard of.
Yeah, but X-Crawl is pretty boss. I think DCC sounds like it'll fit the bill. However, I do worry that DCC, depending on what they do, it feels like, and I'm just based on playing funnels and seeing all their critical stuff. I feel like that game might be pretty deadly with, crazy randomness. And Savage Worlds can be too, but not nearly as crazy. It can be a little swingy. I think I still, my gut feeling says Savage Worlds would be a better take on X-Crawl than even DCC. But I'm snagging that dude when it comes out, 100%.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Movies. This is a big subject, and it's going to be tough for me to record driving in the car. I know if I don't look at the phone, I'm going to keep going over. You mentioned Disney's a pass. I'll tell you one Disney movie that inspires me RPG-wise and has since I was a little kid is The Rescuers. If you remember the cartoon The Rescuers, and Bob Newhart was one of the voices. That I think that's a good RPG-inspiring movie.
Is that the mouse movie?
Well, there's a lot of them, so I don't know. I mean, there's Feifel, the Feifel movie. That might be what you're thinking of. But this is different. This is back from when we were probably in grade school.
Oh, okay.
Which is a different era, when we say no to Disney, we're saying no to Disney Plus, maybe, or modern Disney. There's a lot of good old Disney stuff. Yeah. Lots and lots.
There's some good modern Disney stuff if you allow modern all the way back to, if you're counting Avengers, but they weren't Disney at that time. So
I'm more talking about the classically Disney stuff, not the Marvel acquisition.
Gotcha.
You mentioned Blade. Of course, Blade is a great movie. Of course, it's based, the character of Blade, I haven't seen this officially, but I'm pretty positive Marv Wolfman and them got the idea of Blade from a 1972 movie called Grave of the Vampires, starring William Smith. You can find it on Amazon and all. Watch Grave of the Vampire. It's a pretty decent movie, but it's definitely where the idea of Blade came from.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. Wouldn't doubt it.
I wonder when he says William Smith, he doesn't mean Will Smith, obviously. That's
probably 70s. Not. Grave of the Vampires, yeah. Will Smith probably was not even.
You would know this William Smith guy if you saw him. I just pulled up his. I I just pulled up his picture. You would know him as soon as you see him. He's a character actor. He's been in
Okay.
a lot of movies from that time.
Okay.
Okay, let me throw you some other movie ideas. 3, The Hard Way, great blaxploitation team-up movie. Where Eagles Dare or Dirty Dozen. The original Losers. The new Losers is okay too, but the original Losers or Nom Angels. You see a lot of places Nom Angels and the Losers are the same movie, but there's another movie out there. Maybe it's not called Nom Angels, but it's made after the Losers. Of course, the Losers has William Smith in it, but in the Losers, a group of Hell's Angels are taken to Vietnam to do a covert mission. And the movie I remember called Nom Angels, maybe it's called something else, is a later movie where a group of, a group of Hell's Angels are taken to Vietnam to do a mission. And there's a captain that goes with them named Calhoun. I remember because the head biker called him Calhouni. So they're 2 different movies, but both, Hell's Angels in Vietnam.
Okay.
Okay, from there, we're going to move on to El Dorado, John Carpenter's Vampires. El Dorado, of course, John Wayne, James Caan. John Carpenter's Vampires, The Chronicles of Riddick. The Chronicles of Riddick being that middle movie with a lot of world building, of course. I think that does good. The Mad Max.
I might have to disagree with that.
I didn't care for Chronicles of Riddick.
No.
I liked not Near Dark.
Pitch Black. Pitch Black.
I liked. I know a lot of folks hold up Chronicles of Riddick as good. For one thing, I don't like Necromonger. That's a stupid name. But
I think that they even had some issues with the world building. I get what he's saying because
there was some good.
But the movie itself.
Yeah, sorry, Jason. I knew we'd get some responses on movies. Jason's a big time movie buff.
Movie guy.
Yep.
Movies, especially by the time we hit The Road Warrior and we hit whatchamajigger. Maybe not the third one as much, but once you hit Fury Road, there's a trigger. Maybe not the third one as much, especially by the time we hit The Road. I think that does good. The Mad Max movies, especially by the time we hit The Road Warrior and we hit whatchamajigger. Maybe not the third one as much, but once you hit Fury Road, there's a lot you can pull from those Mad Max movies. And, other post-apocalyptic movies. In that, you could throw in things like Steel Dawn, and you could throw in things like Cyborg with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
I have not seen Fury Road.
I have, and it's okay. The older I get, I used to think really fondly of Mad Max. It's lost its luster for me. Though I agree with Jason. It's definitely got the post-apocalyptic thing down, how gangs would develop, how different overlords you would have and warlords in different regions. That's true.
Right.
I would say Reign of Fire is an inspirational movie. It could be done a little better, with Matthew McConaughey. But Reign of Fire is definitely a movie that wants me to play in that world. Star Crash is, another older space movie, Corman-style movie. It's an interesting space movie to take a world from. Of course, along with that's Flash Gordon. Flash Gordon, is a great movie to inspire your gaming and inspire your space fantasy shenanigans.
Yeah, some of these movies are great for inspiration, but not necessarily great to watch. I've never liked. Huh?
I mean, what was our topic, though. He's spot on. There is some good inspiration in all those. I watched Reign of Fire just recently. I enjoyed it. A lot of people panned it. I thought it was fun. I mean, it's nothing great, but it's fun.
Mm-mm.
I like the dragon. That was one of the better looking dragons.
Well, it's like Legend.
Yeah.
And what's the other one? Labyrinth.
Yeah, Labyrinth.
Right. Legend and Labyrinth. They were not my favorite movies when they came out.
Well, dude, we were at that. We were looking for a little more seriousness. I mean, Legend was a fairy tale, and Labyrinth was just this weird kiddie movie. I went to the movies Throwback Thursday 2 years ago with Jeff, and we watched Labyrinth, and I was like, this sucks as bad as I remember. I was just like, I just don't, Bowie can sing, but it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just too, when it came out, I was kind of teenage 20s, I think. And I can't remember the years, but I know we went to go see Legend as a group, remember? D&D group. And we were so disappointed.
Yeah. Although you could probably put Dark Crystal.
Yes.
I like Dark Crystal better than those two. But I'm not sure why, because they're probably on the same level of, but they all have good inspirational base, like the world building.
Yes.
Especially nowadays when there's a lot of folks who want to have a non-human game to play.
Yeah.
Dark Crystal is your jam, because there are no humans.
Yeah, and now Dark Crystal I've never seen. I have seen most of I can't say most. I've seen bits of Neverending Story, and I think that's why I never watched Dark Crystal, because I thought that looked like poop, especially with the stupid dragon dog. I'm sorry, I just don't get it. But I could just be, look, guys, I just could be a curmudgeon. Who knows?
Correct.
I am a curmudgeon.
Lord of Illusions by Clive Barker. What was that, 95? Lord of Illusions is basically, low-level characters in the game, Unknown Armies. Great movie. And especially the beginning there is definitely a, PC party. Speaking of that, you want to talk about Call of Cthulhu, The Void from like 2005 or 2015. Anyway, The Void is, the beginning of that's definitely a Call of Cthulhu party. What else do we have here? Of course, Big Trouble in Little China. I had mentioned John Carpenter's Vampires, but Big Trouble in Little China also really encourages that gaming mindset and want to get out there and play. And
dude,
I can't believe we didn't have that in our list somewhere.
That is a top 10 movie.
Yeah.
Big Trouble is definitely inspirational. That is so good. I can watch that over and over. I never get tired of it. And I agree with Jason. It inspires me to game.
Yeah. I think we just have too many movies.
Yes.
It's hard. You're going to forget something.
Yeah,
I know there was someone was talking about perhaps the next D&D movie that they're going to make.
Mm-hmm.
And, or wondering what your favorite D&D movie is. And I put down Lord of the Rings is hands down the best D&D movie that we have. And I mean, who am I to do this, but I dare someone to top it. I mean, I don't think you can. I don't know how
you objectively can. I mean, you can make comments. I mean, Jason, one time, one of his podcasts mentioned Conan the Destroyer, and I agree with him. That's an adventuring party, but Lord of the Rings is, come on, it's Lord of the Rings, dude.
Let's see, I just did 4 movies. 4, this one.
And I'll round it out with Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters. Not a very serious movie or great movie, but it knows what it is, and it'd be a fun world to play in.
I agree with that, actually.
Yeah. It's like a lot of these movies, you can have a lot of the bad fantasy movies might have kernels of world building in there to borrow from.
Right.
As long as it's not Wizards of the Last Kingdom, is that what it was called?
There's one of the, I've never seen that one. I've seen it on Netflix. I think it's on Netflix.
Yeah. Bo Svensson swinging a sword at nothing. The fight scenes were horrible. It was the same, like 3-second scene whenever he swung his sword. It was black background, had his sword going back and forth. Nobody was there. Yeah. Oh, he's an actor, not a sword fighter, and they probably didn't pay for his training. All righty. We got one more from Jason.
All right.
As far as movies I've stolen the plot from or used elements of the plot from, we have Captain Kronos Vampire Hunter. I ran a game Barbarians Lemuria using that as the scenario. El Dorado I borrowed heavily from in the past, John Wayne movie. Forbidden World, John Corman's Forbidden World. I've run a Space Cowboy game based around that movie. Talk about synth scores. Forbidden World has an awesome synth soundtrack. And then I've used parts from Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man in games as well. Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man is one of those, it's not a great movie, but it's a guilty pleasure. I can sit there and watch it anytime. So thank you for your show. Enjoy the 4th of July, gentlemen, and I will talk to you next time.
Yeah,
Thank you,
too.
Jason, again.
Hope you had a great 4th. We did. I did.
Yes, it was great.
I enjoyed myself. But you did that with a lot of great, man, thanks to everybody. Jason, and then we had Andy and Joe and John squeezed in there.
Yep.
Is that everybody?
That's everybody.
Sweet. It's pretty sweet.
That's very sweet. That's almost an hour already.
That's great. I want a long episode. We've been out of it with the delayed blast episode. Today's a delayed blast episode.
Right.
Hey, Captain Kronos Vampire Hunter. I've heard someone else mention that as being a really good movie for inspiration for gaming. It's not necessarily a great movie, but it's good inspiration. So that's what I've been heard. That's what I've heard. That's what I've been heard.
It's on either Hulu or Amazon. So I'm going to try to watch it at some point. Hopefully I will not regret the recommendation.
Yeah.
If it's bad, I'm blaming Jason.
Yes, I'm blaming Jason if it sucks. And as long as it's not anime, I'm good. Oh, okay. Let's move on to the top positive material plane. And one of the things I've got here, well, first, we'll be talking more about our giveaway soon. I don't think Joe's ready to collect emails yet, but episode 50, and when we get 50 subscribers on our YouTube channel, we'll be giving away an item. I was thinking I'm leaning toward Feng Shui too, but I may also give something else away. So we'll see. It's a nice thick hardback book. Hold on for a second. Let me grab it so we can show the folks that are watching on the tube of you. Let's see. My Kingdom for the book. So this is the dude. It's pristine, baby. Pretty new. But Feng Shui too. So that's probably what I'm
cool.
going to go with. Yeah.
The only thing that we're going to have an issue with, if it becomes a thing, is international shipping.
Hey, I know it's going to be pricey, but you know what? A couple of our international dudes get it. I'll cover it. I'll suck it up. That's how much I care about them.
You're so caring. You're giving. Don't let anybody tell you different.
Yes, I'll never do it again. But this one time, we're going to let everybody know it.
What Jason does or is doing is giving a drive-through RPG
that's pretty
gift
cool.
card away. That way there's no, you can use it instantly, you don't have to wait, and it doesn't matter where you're at.
I think Tinkar over at the Tavern Chat recently gave away $250 worth of gift card.
And I, not the most recent, but the one before that, I was trying to stay on to
have a shot at it.
Yep. But it was a very long episode.
Yep. And
I don't mind listening to long episodes while I'm walking around doing my route and whatnot. But being on YouTube, I can't do it.
No, and live, I saw once like tonight. I think him and Bad Mike are doing a pod or doing a live cast, and then on Friday, usually him or Joe or him and Glenn do that. And I really want to be there. I've commented a couple of times with the guys, but I've never been able to get in there and really participate because I just can't sit there for 2.5 hours. And
not when we're already doing this on our podcast.
Yeah, and honestly, I like listening to podcasts better than watching videos.
Yeah.
So that's just me. So anyway, that's pretty good news.
Yeah.
Another thing is we're going to play some OSR action tomorrow. Me and Joe and his wife and a couple of buddies of ours going to get together, and I am going to hodgepodge together Swords and Wizardry, OSE pieces, basic fantasy pieces, and I've been doing some research. I'm telling you guys, Mud Sword, the RPG, is being written. It's happening. I am doing it already. I have a couple of pages, so I'm pretty pumped.
I think it'll be a tiny bit better than Mud Sword.
No, that's code because we don't want any of the big wigs know we're about to bring the hammer down on Watsy and Paizo.
Right.
I don't want to. I mean, we're about to become the next big thing in role playing. Mud Sword brought to you by Biggest Geekus. I mean, it's about to get serious.
Yes.
So that's our code name, secret. So don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody.
And if we put something out, it'll just be a game. You won't have to worry about nothing. It'll just be the game.
At absolute best, it's probably likely going to be free, and it's going to be a PDF. But we'll see. Maybe we'll be rich and wealthy. I'll be a wealthy teacher by then.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're I don't know. You're more likely to quit before you get rich.
That's true, because I'm owed and I'm tired of that poop.
Tired of their crap.
No time for that. No time to teach math. So, anything cool and groovy in the positive plane for you, Joe?
I'm getting a bit of getting a little tiny bit of traction on Twitter, though it's kind of a cesspool. So I'm not sure how much more I can tolerate.
I'm with you. Twitter's tough. I don't do Instagram. I feel like I'm ready to write something on our page. I may have to pick your brain about that, because I got some ideas as I read all these OSR things. I mean, just let me tell you, I'm going to list all the ones I've been looking at. And I looked at I haven't read cover to cover everything, but I have looked at, for certain pieces of the game tomorrow night, Osric, Labyrinth Lord, Lamentations of the Flame Princess, OSE, Vecmi, BX, AD&D 1 and 2, and Basic Fantasy. I can say with all honesty, I studied a piece. I was looking for one topic in particular of every one of those, and I read them. So, yeah. So and Mudsword is looking like it's kind of OSR-ish, but it might have a little new school.
That's
see.
Fine.
Yeah.
I like the OSR mindset.
Me too.
Because, and I was thinking about this, and I don't want to offend anybody out there in OSR land.
No, we love you, dudes.
I like the mindset. When you look back at the old games look like old games.
Yep.
Like, look, I mean, you could have a Model T if you wanted one, and you could have it on display for people to look at, and you drive it around once in a while.
It's not
show
your
it
main
off.
Yeah, it's not your main car.
But apart from nostalgia value, it is nothing compared to modern cars.
No.
So, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the newer games are per se better.
Right.
But when you look at OD&D, it has some glaring flaws.
Sure.
And it's only because it was the first.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily because they didn't know what they were doing necessarily. It's just was first. So you have to refine things. It's just not refined.
Had 12, 13-year-old Randy been given a brown box for D&D. I'm not sure without having played D&D with my cousin before, if I've been handed that box, I don't know if I could have figured out what was. I probably could have, but I doubt if we'd have been doing anything close to what the game was meant to be. And it's not a knock. And I think the sensibilities of OSR are very attractive, and even some of their. I noticed things we talked about: domain. We've talked about hirelings and retainers. We've talked about separate experience point tracks. Those are still very attractive.
Sure.
So there's definitely real rules crunch that I'm going to borrow.
Yeah.
So whether we'll fit into OSR, I don't know, but I hope we find something we love to play. And if other people want to play it too, we'll hand it to them. Say, hey, tell us what you think.
Right.
When it's done, should be probably in about 6 to 10 years. No,
yeah.
Hopefully sooner. Just kidding. Probably 4 years. But anyway,
no pressure.
No pressure. I just got a blazing inspiration yesterday. I spent like 6 hours making your characters, and I'm doing pre-gens this time. And then, want to change this, going to change that. Write this down. And I had a different file open, typing up the rules as I went. So it's kind of cool. It was fun.
That's a lot of time.
Yeah, but that's all right. I had a good time doing it.
That's cool.
Yeah. All right. So we go to the main topic. So the main topic is kind of inspiration from player types. What kind of player are you? What kind of game master are you? And Joe will put the link to the Gnome Stew article where they break down the different. First of all, it was very hard to find a place where they had any kind of quiz. Gnome Stew was not the place, but they had different places use similar wording to describe types of DMs. And the Gnome Stew article talked about their core types were the creator, the director, the fanatic, the manager, the opponent, the player, and the romantic. I don't necessarily agree with all the wording, but it hit enough of the buttons. And I said, I'm just going to go with this. Plus, I got tired of searching because there's so many websites and they use so many different words.
I'll have a bone to pick.
Pick it.
Dungeon Master. What do you get? What are you playing at here?
Dude, we play Savage Worlds. and you are a game master in Savage Worlds.
They're using the wrong word. It
Every
should always be dungeon master.
it's Dungeon Master in Call of Cthulhu. It's not the Keeper. It's Dungeon Master in Rifts. It's Dungeon Master in so Dungeon Master. So what type of Dungeon Master are you? I'm going to acquiesce to my doofus buddy here. So anyway, so thinking about this, first of all, do you think, speaking about different games now, do GMs, Dungeon Masters, do they Dungeon Master different games differently? Not just by the rules, but do you think the way they run the game is different? You've seen me run several games. Do I seem like a different GM depending on what game I'm running?
No, but that's because we play a lot of games with similar needs. If you were running, say, Monster Hearts, you would run that a little different.
I think you'd have to.
Yeah.
And if you're running something like Dungeon World or Numenera, where it's player-facing dice rolls, I think that would by default, I wouldn't know what to do with my hands when I should be going, let the players roll everything.
And a game that's heavily narrative as opposed to moderately narrative. I mean, you can be as narrative as you want to with any game. You're not held back necessarily by the rules, as much as some people might want to say. So if you're a narrative DM, you would probably your DMing style will be a little different than say with a D&D or Nolan Master or even the lighter games that we like to play.
Suppose you're like a yes and or yes but DM, which means like whatever the players come up with, you say yes and or yes but, and you're also very narrative, very RP driven. You're used to having games in most of your games where you only roll dice a couple of times in the 4 or 5 hour session, and then you come into 3.5 D&D or Pathfinder 1, and you can do that. You could run the game exactly the same way. I would feel like the power of the game is being ignored.
Right.
Meaning, well, when I say by that, I mean what Pathfinder's meant to do. Just like if you jump into, say, even though the rules are there, and I played Vampire only a couple times. If you jump into Vampire and you're not exploring your vampire's inner angst, but you're like, dude, I got 3 dots in strength and this much in auspics, is that what it's called? And 3 much in speedy thing, whatever it is. And I want to kick so much butt, it's not even funny. And your group's like D&D, your what's it called? The World of Darkness D&D. So
imagine a party full of vampires of their magnitude, even just neophytes, running around like they're D&D type figures, and you walk, you wait for nighttime because you can't go out in the day. And
kill humans and take their stuff.
Yeah. Wonder how much you can get away with.
Yeah, and I think the GM could run the game that way. I think any game can be running the way you want to.
It's not. That's not the way. That's not really Vampire.
No, and right. So you're losing the power, the intention of the game. It's like me doing Call of Cthulhu and letting you guys get loaded up with super powered high tech. Though I think Trail of Cthulhu lets you do that a little bit, or Delta Green, and go out and just, we're going to kill Cthulhu today. Well, you got enough super powered guns, you got a couple of nukes at your disposal, soften him up with a few nukes, go in there and finish him off. You can do that, superhero Cthulhu. But my point is, in all those games though, I think the way that you are as a game master influences how you run just about every game, even though the game itself can sometimes lead to do different to kind of want to stress one thing more. So let me go into the types here that I got from Gnome Stew. The creator is into rich detail, home brewed settings. So they build their own setting for players to discover. So they're really pumped about the PCs experiencing their world and getting to know things. Then, and again, they even say, of course, no DM is probably all one thing. And then there's the director. They're about strong themes and tight plots. Okay, you are a group of soldiers in Nam, and there's werewolves in the jungle. Okay, make your characters. So don't make, don't make somebody who's like, I'm actually a secretly an occultist and I study magic, and you got to make PCs to fit those stories because they're going to have tight plots. Then there's the fanatic, the GM that kind of knows a setting really well. The example they used in there was Star Wars, inside and out. They have encyclopedic knowledge of the setting and theme. Now, of those three, do those seem to be, you could say, yeah, I could see DMs having those qualities?
Oh, sure.
Okay. Go ahead. You want to try the next couple? Explain those, or do you want me to do them?
Oh, I can do it. The next one's manager. Game balance supreme. Rules 7 roles.
I don't know what that is. I wrote the notes.
Game balance rules supreme.
Correct. So it's all about
you're trying to balance.
Yeah. Everything's got to be balanced. I mean, and I took that mantle up at the beginning of 3.0. I was big into balance.
And you might, with the roles there, what you might have been getting at is making sure you have a even spread of roles amongst the players.
Yeah.
The next one is opponent. That's self-explanatory because the challenge is the name of the game. The DM is your opponent.
My bad guys or your opponents, get ready.
Yeah. Player would rather be playing, but runs the game because no one else will, and connects with other players well. And I'll just go ahead and do the last one. Romantic, NPC interaction, RP, 3D PC character development.
Yeah, so all about your emotional, psychological, physical growth, how that changes, how you become this. Kind of like a storybook to me. You want to see a character grow, like Dresden, from when he was just a street level, still pretty powerful wizard, to becoming like the white, what's it called? The White Knight? Not the White Knight.
No, I can't remember now.
Yeah, he's like this Winter Knight, the Winter Knight.
Yes.
He gets that mantle. Now he's uber powerful, and he's changed about how he approaches things and his losses, and he's had to process some different things differently. But I think it's interesting on the opponent. Not the opponent, with the player too. They mentioned that with the player, the DM that's kind of the player, he's the one that probably is more likely to give a lot of goodies out, because he's like, man, I'd like to have a staff of power. Ooh, I'd like to have a ring protection +5. I'm going to give the wizard a staff of power, ring protection +5. Because he's really thinking, I wish that was me. When you look at those just on your first run through, as a GM now today, do you see yourself in any couple, 2 or 3 of those, or even just one of those?
I have to be honest, it would probably be player.
Yeah.
Though I'm leaving aside the giving all the goodies away, I do identify with the players, so that's what I've done most. And a little bit of creator, probably. Yeah.
I put down for myself, I tend to be a director, which I'm trying to get out of. I can be really bad about kind of putting you guys, I don't want to, some people would call putting on rails, but I tend to write stories that have there's a story to them, right?
Right.
Now you guys can screw it up, or you can be a part of it, or you can change it. But I have this plan and this plot, and I've often been like, like in my Savage Worlds game, I wanted people to pick character names that made sense. So if you're from old Valencia, you should have kind of a medieval Renaissance name from England, right? I wanted the names to fit. Not that you had to, but I kind of wanted that. I have been an opponent. Probably some folks probably think I am, because I do like to make challenges that will push your characters to the limits, probably more than I should. Especially in 3rd edition, I think that was kind of where I was like.
That might be more of a function of being a director, though.
Could be.
Because you don't early on, maybe, but at this point, I don't see you as considering yourself the opponent of the players.
No, not anymore.
Having strong encounters is more how you like, is your expectation that the world would present.
Right.
That's how the world would present. It's going to be dangerous. The world is dangerous, so I'm going to reflect that. Not that player characters all need to die, and I'm going to make sure of that.
Right. Even though I do have the killer DM moniker at Cabin Con, I don't think that's. I agree. That's probably not where I'm at. Now, I would definitely say, and I said a tad of the creator for me, and maybe, and even though I've pulled a lot of I tend to run a lot of published stuff in settings. It usually veers off because I always find something that I like and I kind of make it my own. But I have more than a handful of worlds. The Black Blades campaign. Remember that one 13th Age game we started where remember we played a couple of adventures. Joe and I played a couple of adventures where they were playing the heroes of a dying world. This demon queen was overrunning this world, and you had to save those people on those magical ships. And we were going to start this new world off. We didn't get very far into that. That was going to be all new stuff. I had all new
icons. Yeah.
But anyway, so I think so. How would you see me now then if you don't have the opponents in there?
Like I said, director. I think creator and director. You've had some manager as well because, but I think that's kind of waxing and waning, kind of.
Yeah. It does.
And a little bit of romantic because you like RP.
I do like RP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so do I, but it's not as much.
Yeah, I think Joe, you really kind of mostly are the player because when you GM, you kind of like to have a loose set of notes, let things happen what happened. You don't care if
more sandboxy.
Yeah, more sandboxy. And you really don't care if players get cool stuff and do, even early on, you're like, it's all right, no big deal. You get a +4 sword, your second level. That's okay. Stuff happens. It's cool. Not that you're trying to give them stuff, but I think
I'm not opposed to the random.
Yeah, and you're not opposed, and really, you're probably what, 90% player?
Yeah.
If you had your preference, you could do whatever you want. You'd want to play 9 out of 10 times.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I'm probably the exact opposite. I'd rather GM 9 and 10. That's true. Okay, so then I listed a few other things. This is just stuff that came to my mind, and I don't know how. I thought, well, a scale of 1 to 10. I'm going to kind of ask you this. On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is the following characteristics for a GM? So these are characteristics that a GM should have, what you think would be important, where a 1 is the lowest. It's like either not very relevant or worthwhile, and a 10 is being most relevant or worthwhile. And this might be maybe it's too big of a spread, 1 to 10. Maybe we should do 1 to 5. I'm going to change that here right now. So 1 to 5. So 1 being
doing it live.
Doing it live, man. We're moving and shaking. So for your GM to have this characteristic, and I just kind of listed them as they came to me, and if others come up, let me know. So in your opinion, if the GM builds or buys scenarios and or settings, so he buys modules or he creates modules himself, maybe I should do that separately. Do you think they should, we can do them together. So that he actually builds or creates scenarios or settings himself. He doesn't just, they say buy. I don't know. That's kind of weird.
Buy.
Maybe it should be separate. Let's just
do it as is.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that is very important. You have to have something to play.
Yeah.
I don't know how you wouldn't be, unless everything was random tables the whole time. So I would say that's very important. 4 or 5, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I do think, and people claim there are GMs that come in with little to no idea for a plot, just have a thing happen, and they just play off the players and apparently have a really good time. That's the lazy
DM method, as in TM, not just someone being lazy. That's the lazy DM /flourish method.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
but he has more
prep. There is prep.
But yes.
But it's minimal.
And I've heard people say you should prep to improvise. Improvisation requires prep. But yeah, I think that's true. What about prepares the adventure? So that's an interesting thing. So
what's the difference between building a scenario and preparing an adventure?
Maybe nothing. They sound similar. Well, in your head, you could say, so the scenario is the players are going to be approached by a halfling thief. And he says, my daughter has been captured by the hag that lives deep in the woods. Okay. And I have a map that will lead you to her. Now, secretly, the halfling is the hag, and she wants to get the players there to eat them, get the characters there to eat them. She's a green hag and she's hungry. So that is the scenario that you've thought about. But that's you've built the scenario.
Okay. I get that.
But then again, because and with a module, you get White Plume Mountain, right? We're going to do this. I've skimmed it. I know what it's about. And then when you get there, you're just reading out of it, and you don't, you haven't really prepared it. So,
okay.
So maybe I should just say preparation, true preparation for the session. And that's a tough one. I know.
that's the problem with a lot of these. It depends. You could say preparing is important because you need to have something for the players when you roll in there, even if you prepare to improvise.
Right.
Although you do have, I'm going to say, apart from the edge cases, which I think someone who can just improvise with, they can just show up and play with nothing. That's an edge case, I'm going to say. So barring that, prepare is important, whether you prepare for improvisation or you prepare to the nines.
Would you say 4 or 5, or would
probably 4 or 5? It's going to be high.
I would say, because, and see me, I'm not now I could be proven wrong, and I take people at their words, but I have a hard time imagining that week in, week out for a year, for every 2 weeks, or even once a month, maybe once a month, but every 2 weeks you're playing a campaign, 26 weeks out of a year, you just show up and wing it. I can't imagine that I would sit at that table and not see right through it.
You could even do the thing that
meaning I would see you've not prepared. You're just winging it. You're pulling
right. You could even even if you did the thing that old man Grognard said, give me an hour. That's what he did.
That's proper. That could
that's
be
still preparing.
That is. Yeah. That is. Okay. Upkeep on campaign elements for consistency. Don't forget, Bob is the tavern owner at the Yellow Unicorn. Samantha is the blacksmith daughter in training at the blacksmith shop, and so on and so forth. And notes about Joe's wizard accidentally took the ring of power. He doesn't know it yet. He hasn't put it on his finger, but Sauron's looking for it. So, you make those kind of notes to stay on top of this after, kind of like post-session notes, and you keep trying, you have them somewhat organized, or at least where you can find them.
I'd say 3, 4, because you can obsess over that.
Yep.
And then what you obsess about never comes up at the session. So
yeah, I would say 4 or 5 because I'm obsessed. I obsess. Considers the player's preferences and their character types. So Joe doesn't want a lot of touchy-feely Monster Hearts action, and Debbie wants to role play like crazy with every person in the inn. And Joe likes to play wizards who get really powerful. So I should consider that and when we play. You think that's a good
3 at best?
3 at best. So you're so I'm hearing there from you, I would say it's a 3 or 4. You're saying that it's moderately important, but if a DM was a good DM but didn't really consider your preferences, you could still have a good time.
Sure.
Okay.
Because I don't think you necessarily need to consider my preferences when you're making, depending on how detailed you're doing your prep. This is the scenario, and my preferences, I'm going to play to my preferences.
Yes.
So, and that might mean I'm not very demanding.
No.
So maybe that's the reason why I'm thinking this way, because I'm not very demanding. I can grab onto the scenario in a lot of different kinds of ways, and I'll be happy with most DMs.
And you can influence it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a wizard that seeks power, even if the GM says our setting is low magic, very few wizards, when you find one, you don't leave him alone. You're dogged. You're like, hey, I go to, Malakar the Mighty, the one wizard we know of, and I say, hey, I found this ring and I'm studying this, and tell me something about this. And I'm 5th level now. So, hey, tell me some cool stuff. Give me a spell, please teach me, master, or whatever. You could kind of push that if that was your agenda, or what your preference to be as a player.
Right. I think if the DM sets the table for you, he's going to have something you can grab a hold of. As long as I think you both have to be open-minded. So catering to the players, I think you give players things, I don't think you cater to them.
No. Well, considers their preferences and their character. I didn't say cater, but that's why
I know.
I see why. Because a 4 or 5 might be, I'm catering. I know what Joe likes. I know what Deb likes. I know what Tom likes, and so on and so forth. Now this one, we had an episode on this one. So it's appropriate challenges for the players.
1.
Okay. Are you sure?
Maybe 2.
Okay, 1, maybe 2.
Mainly because if you have appropriate challenges all the time, for me, it's going to get boring.
Right.
Very predictable.
Correct. And I think you should have some.
Some.
I think you should have challenges where they can kick the crap out of things. I think you should have challenges that really push them to the wall. And I think you should have challenges that are like, this ain't about fighting dudes. Your second level, this is literally a 17th level lich. If you want to fight him, okay, but you're losing. And by losing, I mean you're all going to die the first round.
Yeah.
Cloud kill, dead. So I'm going to say a 3 because I think there's times that you want to get a mixture, but I'm not saying CR challenge rating appropriate because we've already talked about that. We neither one of us are a fan of that. Right. But you got to make it to where the players can win some and they can lose some. Mm-hmm. And by lose, I mean not fight. And then there's some where we'll just see what happens, what the dice say.
Right.
Ability to improvise is a little connected to some, just having that ability. So Randy's a crazy prep master. But do you think Randy should be ready to roll with it if, like, you and Greg T decide, hey, we're not going to help the sheriff. He's been kind of a douche nozzle to us. We're going to kind of circumvent it and see if we can't find out what's really going on without helping him.
I think it's at least a 4.
I agree.
Because we all know from long play that a DM's plans barely last as long as it takes to make the introduction to the adventure.
Yeah, it's basically, what's the saying? No adventure survives contact with the player character.
Players. Yeah, I was trying to think of that, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Here's an interesting one. The ability to read the room. Dude, you're looking around, you got this sweet puzzle I just designed. I designed a puzzle that's based upon the Fibonacci sequence, every 6th term in the Fibonacci sequence. And it's a cool little math puzzle. And I've transcribed it to symbols in quote unquote draconic in the magic world to get to this door. And the players got to figure this out with these crazy math clues I give you. Mm-hmm. And I look around, you guys spent 30 minutes, and you guys are like, maybe I need to like either give you a hint or maybe like help you make a little quick check and get you past this because you're losing interest. I think that's pretty important. What do you think?
That is.
And I give that a 5 actually.
Yeah. I mean, is there one on here that is equivalent to knowing your players at all?
Well, only considering the preferences. Preferences, because you might have players don't like solving puzzles.
Yeah.
Puzzles aren't their bag. Like you notice as a DM, I'm not much for trap guy. Not anymore.
Right.
Don't be shocked about tomorrow night though. Because I'm running a module.
By traps, do you mean puzzles?
No, I mean like traps.
Actual traps. Okay.
Flip, boom, fireball, you're dead. Oh. But though if I do, I tend to go with magical.
Yeah.
Not much mundane. But I think that's important as because you're doing people. How about pacing the game? I don't think about that much.
No, me either.
But I think it's probably a thing. Do you ever feel like when we're playing that it's frenetic and you can't breathe?
Not really.
No.
Maybe we as players have played together enough that maybe it's intuitive for us with each other.
Except you've mentioned a couple of times, like the girl on the pier in 13 Days, one of our first play tests.
That's not pace necessarily.
You sure? Oh, maybe not. Okay, go ahead, explain.
That's more catering to a player, even if it was accidental, even if it wasn't intentional, and you kind of just went with it because that's what was going on.
Yeah,
that's not necessarily pace per se.
We're talking about a playtest situation. We're playing around with playtests. We were trying out 13th Age, and I was trying to use their you roll this D6 for what are they called? Icon relationship roles, guide the story. Mm-hmm. And my wife and Amy both glommed onto this somewhat mysterious young girl, 10, 11-year-old, sitting there kind of crying on the pier. And I won't blame them fully because not only did I cater to them, but they hit the button in me that was like, ooh, RP time. And I knew it. I could watch Joe and he was like, come on. And so we go around. This is great. I got to tell this story. So we're going around, and as you're doing stuff to help this girl, you get a chance to influence the story. I give you a little narrative control. And as soon as I hand it over to Joe, this is all like RP. Joe says, my horse is secretly a demon. This is after this girl. And Joe's like, let's fight something. That was so good.
Right. So I like some role play.
Yep.
And role play that's connected with the scenario and moving things forward. I like. So maybe it is kind of pace, but it was just we have different have players with different mindsets. So you're happy with having a whole RP session, and so is Debbie.
Right.
And I'm not sure how much Amy is, but she was down for that, and they had no complaints about it.
I think our buddy Philip is. I think Philip would be fine with that.
Yeah. I was like, okay, I'm done.
Well, how about this? Let's go the other end. What if we had a GM, and I haven't done this in years. Okay, you open the door and you find 4 skeletons, you fight them, roll initiative, boom. You get 10 gold pieces and a silver ring. You go to the next room, you see 2 ogres and they're guarding the treasure, roll initiative, bomb, do this. Next room, you got to fight 7 bugbears. I mean, you could kick in the door and fight the monsters. We used to do that early on, but even some people, even when you dress it up, some adventures that are pre-written, they're just fight,
dungeon crawls.
Fight.
Yeah, dungeon crawl.
And like crawling, like slow, not just a classic dungeon crawl, but my God, all we're doing is fighting stuff.
Right. So dungeon crawl, you can do it poorly where you're basically open door, like you were just saying, open door, fight, closed door, open door, fight, closed door. That's not fun. But you do a fight, you do some exploring. There's interesting things about the dungeon that you find out, some clues about
story.
There's some you can inject story into that, and that's all good.
And you have to have a chance to have. And I know I've listened to podcasts where they talk about pacing, and I guess I'm not very narratively inclined, and I kind of get what they're saying, but I don't know how to really take that to the table and make it happen unless I'm just doing my own kind of pacing anyway. Do you think, like I have done this when it comes to pacing? So you guys were RPing or you're exploring a room, and I can tell not just Joe, but 3 or 4 people are getting kind of antsy. And even the group that's doing the exploration, they're getting a little tired. And I know there's not that much here. So, ninjas kicking the door, it's fight. Sometimes you need to just have a fight.
Yeah.
Let's have something happen.
So I think what it is we've gotten to the point where we can read each other.
Yes.
And instead of trying to artificially pace the game,
right,
you're reading the room like the one before.
I was going to say they feel connected. Yeah. Well, what about this? Do you think I felt we had a pacing problem. I would call this a pacing problem in the old Elysium campaign, where when we were just doing arenas, everybody was doing, Greg would do an arena, you do an arena, Phil would do one, I would do one, whoever would do an arena, and we might have some cool setup, but after a while, it's like, we're competitive and trying to win this particular competition, and not that we don't like competition, but for a while it's like it's kind of samey. And we broke it up with now the city comes alive, we do some RP and we learn some about politics. It starts to get, then of course we lost control of that part, but that's how a normal campaign would go. So I think that's something there. So I would say pacing is probably important. I would say it's probably at least a 3 if not a 4, but I don't think it's something that you have to consciously do all the time, or I don't, or at least I don't do it, or I'm not good at it. One or the other.
I think you might need to do it like at a convention. It's probably more important at that kind of a setting where you're time limited. So you have to make sure you get through things, or you have the appropriate amount of stuff prepared for the time slot.
Yeah, and I would say
home game is less important.
Yeah. If we have a drag-on session where you're trying to figure out the motivations of a little girl who's crying, and it's all because she dropped her donut in the water, and it gets all, people go, what if it's this? What if it's that? And the DM plays off of it. And it's waste 3 of the 5 hours, and don't get much done. If we're playing the very next week, you're like, that wasn't my favorite session, but we're finally on our way. We're going to the legend there. We're going to fight.
Right. If that was like a one shot at a convention,
Yes.
Money back, please.
Yeah, dude, that's poop. That's pure poop. Or like, I think Cabin Con. What about this? At Cabin Con, where now here's it kind of bothers me. We tend to have 4-hour windows, and I do think about pacing a little bit. I'm probably more than a little bit. I tend to do. I realize 3 or 4 potential combat scenes and maybe 1 or 2 others at most for a 4-hour, depending on the game mechanics. And but I kind of want, on a side note, and we'll talk about it some other time more in detail, I'd like us to worry about that less at Cabin Con. Just a side note, guys that are listening, I wouldn't care if someone ran a 9-hour game. They just said, that's what we're doing. My game's 9 hours. If you want to play, it's how long it lasts.
There's been times we were so wanting to make sure everything went off without a hitch. I was trying to, in between sessions when you're grabbing food.
Yeah.
I hate rushing food.
Yes, me too. And I hate the idea of like, well, even like I got to get done here to get to my next game. That's why the overscheduling was bad. But let's talk about that some other time.
Yeah.
How about knowing when to fudge rules or dice rolls?
I think that's important, but I don't. Well,
where are you gonna put it? I know. I'm leaning toward no fudging.
Yeah, me too.
I'm leaning toward heavily, like 80%.
It's more like this. If you're unsure about a rule, you make a ruling and move on, and then correct it later, if that's what we're talking about. If you want to fudge a rule or a dice roll to a more favorable outcome for some reason, I'm less inclined to do that.
Yeah, me too. So I would probably say a 2 or 3 for me.
Yeah.
But understanding that it's about the players.
What does that mean?
So it's not about my grand narrative and this story I'm about to tell you.
Okay.
I'll tell you a sweet story. It's about the players and what they do. Now, you could expand this further, but let's just say that. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, let's leave it at that and say 4 or 5. It is. That's what it is.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
I mean, you could lay out your own story and shoehorn the players into it.
Yep.
But I think it's more fun if you let the story develop at the table in play.
I like the statement, story is what happens at the table.
Yeah.
And don't plot your adventures out too much. And I admit I'm not great at doing that. Now I will say I can only measure by the people that come back and play with me. And I know I've been kind of plot heavy at times. I must be doing something right because people keep coming back. Or it could just be I'm one of the few people that want to DM.
Well, there's that. People like to play your DMing style, but you are flexible.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like you're going to let one of the players say, that bad guy, we need to switch him out for somebody else or something like that. Right. But you're flexible within what I think would be reasonable for the player level interaction with the environment and the story and all that.
Yeah, like if someone says, "Hey, wouldn't there be a fan in this tavern?" Or wouldn't there be a window behind couldn't there be a window behind this guy? We've got kind of them kind of creating the environment at the moment. I'd be like, that sounds reasonable. Okay.
Right. So you're flexible.
Yeah. Varies encounters. How important is that?
Varies encounter.
So for example, I was known for many years. Well, what's my favorite type of monster?
Undead.
Yeah. Knows
demons.
All my players. Demons. Yeah.
Golems.
1, 2, 3. That's right. Boom. That's Randy. He loves those 3 things. They also happen to be some of the most dangerous things in the game.
Right.
It's funny, as much as I love dragons, I don't put a lot of dragons in my games. But
you go through spurts.
I do.
3rd edition, especially when the Draconomicon came out.
I like dragons.
Yeah.
Because they were so awesome.
Yeah.
So what do you think? What do you think of it? Do you like it? I think an adventure is cool if it's got an undead theme.
Sure.
It's got an aberration theme. Or what if you're going through a mine where there's a bunch of dwarves that are enslaved and by mind flayers, and their minions are Quagos, those hairy men, and they're all over the place.
Sure. That's fine.
Lots of Quagos. That's fine too.
Yeah. So a session doesn't need to have that much variance. I think the variance is better over the course of a campaign.
Right.
So
what are you thinking? Maybe
I think
3
it
or 4?
depends.
Depends.
3, 4. It depends on what you're talking about. So you don't need to have I mean, my opinion is you don't need to have, if you have over the course of a campaign 1,000 encounters, you don't need to use 1,000 different monsters.
Right. I agree. About rule consistency.
Oh, that's as much as you can have it, you should have it. 4 or 5,
So
probably
5.
5.
5. I agree.
5.
Even though I think on both ends, we'll get to this on one of the, when we talk about that little quiz we're going to take. I do think you, as both a DM and a player, have to recognize sometimes that some rules don't work for the table or for what we're trying to do, or we just don't like them. Even if it benefits you as a player, or even if it benefits the monsters as a DM, sometimes it can just be too much, and you may want to change it.
Sure.
Notify ahead of time for house rules.
For the most part, yeah, probably 4 or 5. I mean, there's a lot of these kind of things everybody needs to be a little flexible.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. So if, like you were just saying, you have a house rule, but you've played 5 times and that house rule is really not looking good, we should probably change it. So notifying ahead of time is probably no good for that. So barring edge cases, probably 5.
I'm thinking of an example you talked about, I don't know when it was, a couple episodes ago, where you said that a GM let you play a wizard. He didn't know the wizard spells very well for one adventure. And then at the end, you guys did something to essentially destroy magic. You said, okay, wizards can't cast spells now.
Essentially, yeah.
And that's a house rule. It's like, now, did you know that going in, or was it not until the end of the session? He said, you're screwed.
Yeah, it was during that session. He was like, yeah.
Oh, mid-session? It
was, it was toward the end.
Okay.
When we realized what was going on, I was like, well, how's this going to play out for my wizard? Oh, yeah, I don't know the wizard spells very well, so blah, 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 blah.
You love that, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
That connects to the next one. Well read within the game rules. Playing D&D, you really know them pretty well.
Yeah, 4.
Yeah, I agree. 4 is good.
You don't have to be perfect with the rules, but you need to be you need to at least have a good working knowledge of the majority of it.
Yeah, it's funny because sometimes when I play with say some of our more rules knowledgeable players, sometimes I feel like even when I'm GMing, I'm the least knowledgeable one at the table, especially like say 5e. Some of the 5e players, I don't know the rules very well, but I've run a game for people. Now, they've not said anything, but they probably wouldn't. But I bet there's time at the table. Sometimes I've been corrected. I said, what's the rule for this? As long as I'm not doing it every time, I know the core mechanic. I know how to roll initiative. I know how spells work. I know how short rests and long rests work. You got to know how the game basically flows. It doesn't mean you got to know how the swimming rules work.
Right. So yeah, for D&D is D&D mostly, except 4th edition. All the rest of them work pretty much the same. 5th edition has the advantage, disadvantage, and then long, short rest. Most of the rest is very similar. There's details that are different, like how many spells do your wizards get. Wizards aren't strictly Vancian.
Right.
There's a little change with that. But those are all minor details. But you know how to, it's combat time, roll initiative.
Yep.
You know how to do that.
Dexterity. Let's go. If you got a feat, you add this and 3rd edition, Okay, what about well read within the genre or setting or fluff? So meaning that, hey, we're going to play a Dark Sun world. Do you expect that DM to have a pretty good grasp of how the basic politics of the realm is, how the world works, how spells are affected, how the different classes and races, how they differ from standard D&D? Not that they know every detail, but they need to have a pretty good feel for how preservers and defilers interact with each other.
Yeah. As long as they should know how they're going to run it.
There you go.
They're going to go with, if they're going to go with canon the way it is, they need to at least be, is like I was saying with the game rules, you may get some details wrong, but you need to have the general concept. So probably a 4 again.
Yeah, I would say especially with homebrew, like if you're playing like a dwarf, I've done this before, and some DMs know it really well. Some don't have an idea. I'm playing a dwarf character. I'm just using a dwarf as an example. Hey, I'm about to make a statement. Hey, out of character. In your world, in this world we're playing in, how do dwarves and elves generally feel about each other? Because in some worlds they're kind of Legolas and Gimli, or they kind of rib each other, but nothing bad. Other times they're like, never trust an elf,
right?
And others they're like, there's a great dwarf elf war,
right.
Many,
well,
many
all
years.
of those things are true of Tolkien.
Yes.
At various times, like by the end of the trilogy, Gimli and Legolas were great friends.
Yes.
At the beginning, they would have been happy with slitting each other's throats.
Really, that much animosity?
Yeah, from what I understand.
Oh, okay. So the point is, in the world, so if they, how do most dwarves and elves view each other? Are they just pointy-haired, prissy things, and the dwarves are like, no, they're just, and elves are like, the dwarves are just drunken, hard-headed douche nozzles, or what?
I would hope that the DM knows those things to some degree, unless the one caveat would be if you're, and this is something you would probably want to say in advance, and you would say something like this: look, I'm developing this world as I go. Here's the very basics. Let me know what you think about X, and then that might change over time.
And if I'm playing with, and me, something I'd be very comfortable with is like, hey, Joe, you asked me that question. I say, Joe, I don't know. How do they view each other? And basically you tell me the way you want to play your dwarf character, and I let you decide, especially early on, how dwarves and elves. That would be kind of fun to let the players make that decision, and then I could build up the details after you tell me, like, hey, dwarves and elves, they don't hate each other, but they won't sit and share a meal together.
Right.
And the fact that I have an elfin character in my party, I'm probably going to sit on the opposite side of the campfire, and I'm rarely going to talk to him.
Right.
And they got a real Cold War going on, sort of thing.
Now, I would be cool with that, but, and this is probably slightly tangent, is sometimes I'm okay with that, and sometimes I'm not up to it.
Right.
Especially if I'm tired. And sometimes it's just, I just want to roll dice. Right. So whether that's good or not, if it's a failing on my part, I don't know. Sometimes I just want to sit down and roll dice and don't bug me.
Right, sure. How about this time? If I could tell Joe's really beat, but that comes up, you're like, hey, Randy, how do because you're like tired, like you just work 9 hours delivering mail in 90-degree temperature, not unlike a couple of days this week, and you're like, I can tell you just want to kill stuff, and you fought a few things, and you're like, oh, you meet this elf, and you'd be like, oh, you're like, I don't know what I think of this guy. And then if I said, okay, Jenny, how do dwarves and elves generally feel of each other? Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, sure.
And then
I was even thinking about this today because I was listening to a bunch of podcasts, and some of that, my ungenerous side says, this is the DM punting.
Yeah.
But I think the DM should have multiple tools in their toolkit. One is taking on the narrative. 2 is allowing others to do that.
Yeah.
Or make it random or some combination. As long as the DM isn't always, unless they're comfortable with it narrating everything.
Yes. And I wouldn't mind. Yeah. Like I said, I wouldn't do everything that way, but I mean, I could see myself like not having thought about it and kind of be excited at the prospect, like, oh, no, I haven't really thought about that idea in the world.
Right.
The players have a cool idea. And Jenny's like, you know what? Dwarves and elves intermarry. It's rare, but they do it, even though they can't have children, because they have such a deep and abiding affection for each other because of the Great Demon War.
You're going to make me want to puke, dude. That is gross.
That's romantic. That's my romantic side. But I mean, you can take it or leave it.
Yes, right.
Anything else? I did a whole bunch of stuff there. Anything else you can think of? I mean,
yes, you're getting burned at the stake here soon.
Elves and dwarves secretly love each other at all times.
Get a room.
Gimli. So what do you think? Anything else you should think about or think can be important characteristic of a GM that I've left off? I'm sure there's probably something. Too late into the podcast.
Yeah. I just want to roll dice, dude. Leave me alone. Something, I guess, ability to improvise is probably akin to, I'm trying to think of a skill set that a DM needs to be able to be the kind of person that's going to talk in front of others.
Oh, there
Right.
you go.
So
just the ability to be comfortable in front of people speaking. That's a big deal, actually.
It is. Now, it's not like if you're not comfortable, you don't get to DM.
No.
But either I think it's a good ability to have, and you can develop that over time by DMing.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be talking in front of people.
Yeah.
It might be easier because you know them if you do, but if you game with strangers a lot, you'll have to come out of a shell if you have one. If you want to DM.
And that's why, well, I mean, I was pretty good with my friends when we were young, but now that I've been a teacher for 20 plus years, and I'm in front of the classroom, I can speak in front of 500 people. I might get a little nervous. Once I get going, I'll be fine. So I think that helps me tremendously. Plus, as a teacher, you manage students, a classroom. I manage tables of players, and I think there's a lot of skills that I've developed as a teacher. Not that I had them; it took me years to do it. That I can bring to the game table. Because some players, I think some DMs are really reticent to pull the reins on the players, refocus the players, and I'm not. I'm like, hey, let's get back to what we're doing. Let's not forget. And if you keep ignoring me, like, okay, the demons are supposed to be developing, they're building their army. Okay, if you want to ignore it, that's fine. We can sit here and role play with the town innkeeper if you want to, but they're coming. And I think those sort of things, those little things are hard to develop except over time, unless you have a job where you've done that. And you have to give young DMs a chance to develop that. I agree with you. Just because you're not comfortable speaking in front of people, first of all, remember, you're probably playing in front of your friends.
Right.
So your friends want you to succeed. And
you would hope.
Oh, I would hope so. I don't want him to fail, And so I think it's good that they do that. All right. So I think that's about all I've got for that particular label, those particular ideas.
Yeah.
Last two things I want to go to a little bit of kind of some funny and fun stuff. On D&D, what is it? dndppf.blogspot.com. What kind of dungeon master are you? There was a little quiz, not unlike the player quizzes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And did you take it?
I did, and I got diplomat.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
So there's like 10 questions, and they give you anywhere between +2 and -2 points for what you answer, A, B, C, or D. And diplomat would put you between +5 and -5. You are moderate, almost all your decisions. You believe in the rules. You also feel like they can be bent. Your players respect your ability to compromise and keep the game going. Well, of course, Mr. Even Kill. That's perfectly why you should get that. I strangely ended up at Innkeeper, which I'm not sure. Maybe it says my wife helped me answer the question. So I did it once, and then I wanted to make sure that I was, because that's the kind of a thing I think it's hard for me to think about my own thinking sometimes as a DM and how I would react. Here are the questions. So the first one was, when making a character, a player comes to you and asks if they can re-roll their ability scores after rolling really poorly the first time. What do? Say no, rules are the rules. Say yes, I want a happy player. Say no, give them 1 or 2 extra points in key abilities. Say yes, but make them keep a couple of low scores.
Right. And honestly, I can't remember what I specifically answered to that.
Yeah.
But this is a good example of being a little too vague.
Yes, agreed. 100%.
What does it mean by really poor?
Right.
Because different people have different ideas as far as that goes.
Okay, so let's say, well, because since I DM more than you, which one do you think I would say?
And it would depend on the person too.
Okay.
Who's asking you.
All right.
Right, I think. So let's say I rolled in front of you and I rolled really poor. And for me, really poor means no stat with a bonus.
Okay.
So everything's 9 or below.
Yeah.
Or a 10 or below.
Yeah.
And I would say, hey, dude.
This guy's poop.
What do you say? I think you would either let me re-roll, or you would say, well, how about you just pick the standard array and we'll go with that.
You're
Something
right.
Yeah.
Truly, really, Debbie said the same thing for me. She goes, basically, I would say, yeah, I want a happy player. And generally I do. That doesn't mean I'm going to let you roll until you get all 18s. But you're right. I might say, here's a standard array. Is that good enough since you rolled poop? Especially if we're playing like, if we're playing 3d6 down the line and everybody else is living with what they got, you'd have to have a pretty bad character before I would say no. I think all zeros would probably qualify. I think if you had a +3 somewhere, say an 18, you had a +2 or +3, depending on what version of old school you're playing, +4, and then you had a -1, the rest were zeros, I'd say, dude, can't you play that?
Right.
Just put that in your main stat. You'll be a boss. You're just not much. You're super intelligent. That's kind of it. Not an athlete, not much of an athlete, not very wise, horrible charisma. That's just how I am.
Right.
And you'd probably be okay with that. If you had a really good stat and and you could play a character you wanted to play, you'd be okay with it. But if you're like, dude, -1, -1, -2, -3, +0, I'd be like, dude, re-roll that crap. Or take the standard array or whatever. Yeah.
Because I am not in the camp of horrible stats makes a more interesting character.
I agree. I agree that you're not. No, and I also agree that it's not true by default. Right. But I'm of the mind I would, if I had all negatives, I would play them. I would play whatever I rolled, and I wouldn't care. I would literally pick my class first. I'm playing a fighter. Oh, look, a 6 strength. Oh, well, that's what I got. But that's because, I know I'm probably going to play at max 5-6 sessions and be DMing again. That's probably part of it. But that's one of the first questions. So many of the questions are things like when making it was funny. A lot of the questions were strange. Is that when making a character, a player comes to you and asks, you discover the first session this happens. One that I thought was interesting. Like it says, this is what we talked about already today. You discover in the first session of the campaign that one of your players has legally min-maxed their character to be very overpowered. What do? And the choices were this. I mulligan the character, tell them to start over. I let them run with it. I tell them to make a character, but give them some bonuses for the trouble to make a new character. I let them keep the character, but tweak a few things. I think I would lean toward let them run with it, but I would tell them, look, if you end up dominating all life at all times, you got to think about maybe taking a little bit of a penalty somewhere, dial something back a bit. Because if you're just dominating everything, but maybe that's the way it could work. Right now, honestly, I'm just saying maybe, because honestly, right now, if you rolled 6 18s on our mud sword game, you know what I'd say? Play it.
Right.
I don't care. You're awesome. Because there's some drawbacks to being Mr. Awesome.
You get the target painted on your back.
Yeah, but you can do everything. And what about this one? After a few sessions, you notice that one of your players is cheating on their rolls. What do?
Okay.
Ask them to leave the game.
Yeah. See, I think none of them I like. None of those answers I like.
Yes.
Because none of them. Let me see if I can find that. Which one is that?
It's number 4. I immediately asked them to leave the game. No place for cheaters. I ignore it. Why rock the boat? I announced to the whole group, let them deal with it. I passed the player a note telling them to stop.
None of them are take the player to the side and
right.
talk to them face to face.
That's what I would do.
The closest one was I pass the player a note. That's kind of passive.
It's passive.
I don't like that.
No. If Joe was cheating, I'd be like, Joe's a stinking cheater. There's no room for him at my table.
Of course you do that to me, and I do the same thing. Stop cheating, Randy.
Stop cheating, you little stink ball.
But you I don't know why they don't have the take them to the side.
Yeah, me too.
There's a lot of these questions. Yeah. There's a lot of the questions here that don't have appropriate answers to them, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's something it's funny. There's a little side note in my life as a teacher. I failed at that many times not when a student's cheating, when they're doing something they shouldn't be. It's not a good idea to call students out in front of everybody else. But part of me wants to do that because I want them to see justice and I want everyone to see it meted out. But it never ends very well because they end up thinking of you very badly because you embarrass them.
Right.
Now, if they do it a second or third time, I kind of think you should embarrass them. If it's one time's one thing. What about this one? One of your players is constantly arguing with you about the rules. What do?
That's another one. Let's see. Tell them to stop or I'll kick them out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Probably A. But
Yeah.
not
immediately.
Not immediately. If
I would
there's you're gonna
probably-
a couple of light warnings and then like, okay, you're done.
I'm thinking I'd do C first, and then I would listen some, but then after a while, like, dude, do you have to argue about every dang thing? Yeah. The rude player thing is weird. Players being rude. Here's a good one. Number 8. During a must-win fight, you notice that your players are losing badly. What do you do?
Bad premise. Must win. I mean, must win is in you're fighting the big bad, and the princess is right there. If you lose, the princess dies. So you have to win, kind of.
What about this? You're trying to solve a puzzle and everybody's failing, and you can't go through the next door without solving the puzzle. Some folks call that a must win. I don't know if that is.
I would call that potentially poor design, but
okay.
But maybe not. I mean, to get into the castle, you got to go through the front door, but maybe you don't. Maybe there's
right.
So if you've designed a castle to have one entrance, if you can't find it or you can't get through it or whatever, you can't get in there and you can't do the thing.
Yeah. Now, if it's the big boss, my thought is the dice are against you and you guys can't make it. It's maybe a TPK. I don't know what to tell you. Heck, right. I think that maybe in the first fight, if you guys roll really, I mean, though, if you're rolling really poorly against goblins in your first level, it could be that I would do something like have an NPC show up to give you a hand, not to dominate the fight and be a friend to the party, or I don't think I would change their hit points, but I might have them, flee when you kill a couple, 3 of them because their morale is low, because they could conceivably lose morale. But it's hard to believe if they're kicking the crap out of you, they lose morale just by losing 1 or 2 of them. Yeah.
This is the thing. If you die in this game, you die in this game. You make a new character.
Now,
and there's the other part of that is knowing your players.
Yes.
So if you're playing with your pals, and you're all on the same sheet of music, as in the dice fall where they may kind of thing, and everybody's cool with it, and you don't have to worry about this stuff.
Yeah.
It's more like pickup games and stuff like that. And even that, you can just say at the beginning, dice is going to fall if you guys start sucking and you could die.
And I'm rolling on my butt. Sorry about your luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think, So I feel like in our mud sword experiment tomorrow, I'm kind of going to say the dice are going to rule everything. And you can say after, those challenges are too hard. And I may agree with you, but it's kind of a one shot. You're just experimenting. So it's not a huge deal, but that's interesting.
And what if that must win fight, it's must win because you've picked a fight with the wrong dude.
Correct.
And you have to win so you can go to the actual fight that the DM actually wanted you to do instead of this thing you were supposed to run from.
Yeah, you're talking to the ghost who's supposed to give you this secret password to get into the tower, and the ghost is real prickly, and then a couple of your characters in the back, and maybe the cleric and the magic user, are giving him the finger while the paladin's talking to him. And you call down the thunder, and the paladin goes, well, I guess I got to fight. And I'll be, like, okay, and roll initiative. Once initiative's rolled, dude, I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
It's time. But this one, near the end of a campaign, one of your players decides to stab the rest of the party in the back, causing a crisis. What do you do?
Okay, you can look at this a couple of different ways.
Yeah.
If you're causing a crisis, and the crisis has brought down the thunder on you, and you pay the ultimate penalty,
right?
You get what you pay for.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
You steal the widget, is going to save the kingdom. Okay, good job, you did. You backstabbed the party, you killed almost everybody. The cleric managed to save them, and you took off running. First of all, the party's after you.
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, if you're the little sneaky assassin dude and you're 6th or 7th level and you're running off with the magical widget, a lot of people looking for that thing. Mm-hmm. And guess what? You're now off. You just left the great ghost tower, and you got a 7 days journey through the dangerous wilderness, and you're running solo. I mean, you can hide so much, but there's creatures that can smell you out. Oh, I'm sorry. You just ran into a land shark. I mean,
or you could be,
yeah.
So when Trent got married,
Yep.
we played D&D. We played a game of D&D that you ran.
I remember.
And we had the one dude who just had to backstab us.
Trent's brother. Yeah, dude.
Well, his brother didn't backstab. His brother, or did he? Was he the one who did it?
I think he turned tail and ran and took the item, and you ended up bringing the Dracolich in.
I thought that one dude who was a know-it-all did the turning.
Oh, maybe that was it. Maybe
he took something from Trent's.
Yeah, might have been
Trent's brother's character.
That's right. I think you're right.
And we had to like put the hammer down on him.
Right. You can act like that. But
and then he said, that's what my character would do.
Love that. Love that reason. So anyway, yeah, I got the Innkeeper. It says the will of your players influence you greatly. You view the rules as no more than guidelines to keep the game organized. Your players have fun, but can sometimes run rampant. Debbie said I was more like the magistrate. You're a bit more tough than fair. You like to uphold the rules most of the time, but will concede in a few points when you feel it's necessary. Your players have confidence that you will run a straight game. Do you think that's more of a description of who I am? I feel like maybe I am the magistrate.
I think you're a little of both, probably. I don't know. It's hard to tell which one you're more of. It probably is day to day, depending on the circumstances and all that.
Yeah, just like trying to rank my favorite version of D&D. Just ask me tomorrow; it'll change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. The last thing on the link there is at geekoutuk.com. It's just they gave GMs according to alignment. So I don't want to go into the great details. You can follow the link to read them all. But basically, you're anything from a lawful good to a chaotic evil GM. And I like the little quips. Why don't you read the lawful ones? Can you see the little quips from the first one? Not the whole paragraph.
Not the whole thing, right? The thing in parentheses or in quotes. So
lawful
good. The game's only fun if we're going to play fair. Lawful. And I just want to say before we start, I'm not thrilled with their definitions. But
no, these are just I thought these were just kind of funny stuff.
Yeah. Lawful neutral. You can't afford food. You'll need to roll to avoid starvation. That's kind of the grim dark god. And lawful evil. Hey, it's in the rules.
Right. Asmodeus is in the chart. When you're walking through this temple, he could be summoned. So sorry. Neutral good. Awesome. Have a cookie. True neutral. You can't just have it, but I'll let you roll for it. Neutral evil. I hope everybody brought spare characters. Pretty good. You got chaotic?
Sure. There we go. Chaotic good. Let's try something new.
Yeah.
Chaotic neutral. Oh, sure. You'd do that. Would your character?
I hate that one.
You would do that with your character. Yeah.
Right. What's your character doing?
Chaotic evil. Who's ready to die?
I say that a lot, but I think if I had to pick one, I actually think I'm lawful good. What do you think? No.
What that is again.
The game's only fun if we're going to play fair.
Yeah.
I think that's me.
Yeah.
I think you're kind of the same way too.
Yeah.
I'm
not really a stickler about every character necessarily being exactly as powerful as the other one because that's really subjective. But fair is as far as the die roll should stand, be as consistent as you can with the rules.
Yeah, I agree. All right, but I'm encourage you to read them. There's more on there. I don't think they named it. It's just funny. They connect. I don't know how they did this. They connected a game system to each type of DM. They said a DM that's lawful good, Pathfinder would be perfect for them. A lawful neutral would be exalted. Lawful evil would be GURPS. Neutral good, awesome. Have a cookie would be 4th edition D&D. That was kind of funny.
Yeah.
True neutral would be 3.5 or 5th edition. Neutral evil, help everybody about spare characters, Call of Cthulhu. That goes out to Andy. Chaotic good would be Savage Worlds. Let's try something new. And then chaotic neutral is the Cortex system, which I don't know that one.
I don't know it either.
And chaotic evil is paranoia. So
That's probably accurate for paranoia.
probably is.
And chaotic good, Savage Worlds, neutral evil. You could put DCC next to that.
I think so
That's
too.
the case. I
Yeah.
hope everybody brought spare characters.
Especially in funnels. Funnels for sure. That's all we have experience with.
Right.
But yeah, I don't want to say, I just thought that was kind of funny. It was just for our people that are listening to go check it out and see what they think of it. I thought it was a fun read, but it's not nearly as, I don't think it's as valuable as some of the other
It's
creators.
so subjective, very
Yeah.
subjective.
And I have a little paragraph, but it just took too much time. It's not that interesting. All right. Anything else you want to talk about DMing and your DMing style, DM who you are, what kind of DM you are?
No, I don't think so.
All right. So why don't we boogie on to segment 3? We're going to try like it, love it, or leave it.
Right.
Again.
And let me do it first this time because I dropped the ball last time.
You did. I couldn't even pick up. You dropped it. I couldn't even find it.
Yeah. So, question 1.
Yep.
Pick a Star Trek captain.
Oh, you dog. Kirk. Captain Kirk.
Captain Kirk.
Yeah, Kirk is
Obviously.
he's too cool, man.
Too cool.
He's too cool. And Picard's like the strategist. And who's the dude? Cisco is pretty awesome.
Mhm.
But I think for me, it's Kirk, dude. Even if he's not the best, he's gonna win. He's gonna figure it out. And I love how he comes up with the crazy solutions. So yeah, Kirk for me, number 1 for sure.
Doneness of your steak.
Oh, medium rare to rare, baby. Yeah, it's got to be a little bit bloody. Yeah. Now I've had steak, believe it or not, that was well done. That was surprisingly good. But generally, I want my plate to have a lot of red juice around it. A little story of my daughter here. When I was first early on in marriage, took my daughter to Madison to a steak restaurant, and Debbie orders hers medium well, medium. And I said, I can get mine medium rare. And I told Madison, I said, you'll like it. So yeah, no, she goes, I want it. She goes, I don't know which one it is. She goes, but I want it where the red juice is. I like the red juice. And so she got her to me. She eats hers like mine. What about you, Jim? How do you like yours?
Well, I've gone from being a well done guy to a medium guy.
Yeah.
But I understand you could cook a steak with a method called sous vide to
What's
well
it called?
done. Sous vide, it's French. And
Oh,
essentially you put the food that you're cooking in a container that's in water. It's kind of like poached, but different. And you can cook it. I think you can cook it well done all the way through and it's still good. But I've changed my mind about the well done. And I'm a medium at best. So there needs to be some pink in there.
yeah, I like mine pretty. I can eat mine rare, but I don't like when the center's cold. And I
Right.
think most rare steaks is a cold center. So probably medium rare is my favorite. But I mean, I don't like is the wrong word. I'll eat it, but I like it medium rare. Yeah, absolutely.
And your favorite monster type to use against the PCs. We already talked about that.
Yeah, we did. Undead,
Yeah.
baby. Nothing like undead. Draining ability scores, draining strength, draining life and energy. Man, that's awesome. Besides doing a D6 for 3d6 damage, I love it.
Being incorporeal, so you can't hurt them.
Can't hit them with your sweet weapons. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Whiff.
All right, your turn, dude. Travel. What do you think of travel? Trips here, trips there, trips everywhere.
Oh, travel's all right. I like seeing new things.
Do you?
Yeah.
Do you like the idea of traveling really, really far, like to another country, or just more like around?
I'd like it better if I had money for it.
Right. And then you'd be down with traveling all over the world.
Yeah.
That's
I've
cool.
never been on a cruise, but if I could afford one, I would try one.
Deb doesn't want to do that, but I would love to try a cruise, but it might not. I think as long as they have several stops so it's active, I wouldn't like just sitting on the boat.
No, that's not the way. No.
I wouldn't want to do
Don't
that.
just sit on a boat and watch the water go by. That's not the way cruises work.
Okay. Trying new RPGs. Got this new
yeah.
game. What do you think? Like it? Love it?
I like trying new. I do.
Yeah. Especially at Cabin Con. That's a great time to bring a new thing out. Yeah. Here's an interesting one. Giving and receiving compliments.
I have to say I like, as long as they're genuine.
Yes. Are you suspicious? I've always in my life, I've been suspicious if someone compliments me a lot. And I tend not to give compliments a lot, even though I do more than I used to.
It depends on the situation.
Does it? Yeah.
I try to take people at their word.
Yeah.
But sometimes people can be a little deceptive.
Yeah, I don't think I'm naturally suspicious. It's just something about a compliment will make me go, I don't know what you're trying to do. All right. Cool. Well, we're bringing back an old segment. We only did it once. I don't know if anybody even remembers it, called Back in My Day or Back in the Day. Things we used to, I added something to it, things we used to do and play, watch, whatever. And I picked the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon from 83 to 85. There were 3 seasons. So Bobby, Sheila, Diana, and I know this, Hank and Presto and Eric, the Cavalier, Venger, the big bad guy, and Dungeon Master, the dude that put children in harm's way.
Eric, the non-Cavalier.
Yeah, dude. So they roll in from this roller coaster, this ride, end up in the D&D world. The cartoon back in 83. You and I in 83, we were sophomores, juniors. And it was pretty much too cheeseball for us.
Yeah.
But I did watch it because I wanted to see the D&D stuff. And I watched 3 episodes last night. I have the collected edition just for nostalgia. And I watched the Beholder, where he beats the Beholder with a flower. And my wife watched it. And she said, that's dumb. That's literally ridiculous. They had and the cartoon animation was kind of bad. But there's something nostalgic about it that was, I think, because it was and it was kind of popular for a while.
Yeah.
Probably 2 years.
It was cutesy. Honestly, there's no way they could have beaten the Beholder.
No, not those guys.
No.
Though when you look at their items, I used to always wonder, why does Venger want their stupid magic items? Because
they are variably powerful. They're not just a static thing.
Yes.
They have some they're innately very powerful.
I guess Sheila's cloak was invisibility, very powerful. Hank's bow was he could do all kinds of crap. Barbarian Club was Earthquake City. He could knock crap down with that. The Cavalier Shield could literally make a force field around multiple people. And now Diana's staff didn't seem so great. It let her jump over stuff, and I don't know, it just didn't seem that great. And Presto's hat was annoying.
Yeah.
You hated that.
The staff was predictably consistent. You could rely on it.
Right.
The hat, you could not.
Oh, it was so, he was trying to summon food in the second episode, and he summoned a cow.
Yeah.
He asked for magical hamburgers. And, I know trying to be cutesy and funny, but when I look back on it, it didn't hold up what I remembered. But I also remember not really liking it back then either. So to be fair, it probably did hold up. And it's just because you do get a little 3.5 adventure in that collected box.
Oh, okay.
You can play the characters. They got them all statted up in Venger. But
they made a mistake with Presto. He shouldn't have any spells. Because he doesn't have any.
Dude, he had Kona Cold. He's a 9th level wizard.
Bunch of liars.
He didn't do that once. I feel like he did maybe 1 or 2 cool things throughout the whole series. He was mostly comedy relief.
There was one time when they were in Tiamat's realm, and all their magic items became extremely powerful.
Yes, I remember that.
And he was able to pull energy balls out of it and bind her, I think.
Right.
If I'm remembering that correctly. But that I think he had a mildly useful spout of water come out of it one time.
Right.
But yeah, no.
In the opening credits, those ropes come up and it grabs the top of the cliff so they can escape Venger. That was like 3 ropes, grappling ropes, shot up about 40 feet.
Sure.
That was pretty useful.
Yeah.
But it wasn't great. I remember Joe, you're like, oh man, the wizard is stupid. But let's remember, now we know Gygax probably really didn't like the magic user, so let's make him look dumb in the cartoon too.
Right. When I watched it, I was hopeful that it would be good this time. Is it going to be good this time, or is it going to be dumb?
And I didn't get to watch it, but there's one episode, I feel like it's in season 2 or 3, where they meet this dwarf or warrior that's got a great, awesome warhammer. And they go across this place where there's people trapped, and they find a hoard of magic items. And I remember our cousins and even you and I were like, why don't you guys take 1 or 2 of those? Because they left without taking the magic items. And we're like, there's no way. You each had like 3 magic items apiece. Are you crazy?
They'd have to change the opening credits.
Yeah, they would. Yeah, that was cool. But I still have fond memories of it. Yeah. It was just a thing. It was a weird thing. So, yeah. All right, we're gonna probably have a little negative material plane discussion at the end. So if you don't want to hear us, whinge and moan, you might want to pass on it. But I want to would like you to, if you'd like to support our show, please help get the word out. Check out our website, www.biggestgeekispodcast.com. And if you want to support us, that's great. If nothing else, just tell your friends, like us on YouTube or even Odyssey, rate us on iTunes or some other podcatcher, or listen to us there. Me and Joe both do like listening to podcasts, so if you listen to us more than watch us, that's cool. Very understandable. Our email is relatively new, thegeeks@biggestgeekispodcast.com. Feel free to send any questions or comments to us. We'd also like you to encourage you to check out several podcasts we have down there, as well as, I don't think Andy's is in there yet, Expedition to the Grizzly Peaks, but it's pretty good, and give that a whirl too. So we got a set of several other podcasts in there you want to check out. Anything else you want to say there, Joseph?
I don't think so. All
right, bud. This is Randy.
And this is Joe.
Remember, if you can't be big like us, then be geeks like us.
Are we going to jump right in, or do you?
I'm good. I'm ready to roll.
Yeah.
Ready to roll?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have notes or anything.
No, that's okay. I just made a few comments. So the negative material plane, we're fully in this. So if you don't want to hear us, badmouth some people, I'm actually going to come after both sides of this one. This is the new TSR fiasco. The ones that supposedly producing Giant Lands. And they supposedly had Jim Ward, and they had Larry Elmore, and they had Ernie Gygax Jr. And they've been throwing around, that guy, Justin Lanasa, has been throwing around a lot of names, dropping names, saying how we're back at gaming is back at TSR, and they had the Dungeon Hobby Shop. And about the time the Dungeon Hobby Shop came out, COVID hit, and they didn't have much of nothing. And I thought they were saying a lot of stuff that sounded like they got the TSR trademark. Now, Eric Tinkar and Bad Mike did full coverage on this. Mm-hmm. And did you see today that Tinkar did a quick video? I'm excited to hear him and Bad Mike. Apparently TSR has taken down their Facebook and Twitter. That's what he said. I don't know about this.
Oh,
because he thinks they've got a cease and desist notice. It would probably be from WotC, because they implied a lot like, hey, we're going to get Star Frontiers. We're going to do this. We're this kind of old school TSR, we're all the old people, and they really aren't. I mean, Elmore was legitimately an old school guy, but he said he didn't even know about it. And Jim Ward had written Giant Lands a long time ago, from what I gathered. And
he said he's not an employee.
Correct. Jim Ward said that?
Yes.
Or was that Larry?
Jim Ward.
Yeah. And they had taken the trademark from a dude, what's his name, who did that. I think he's had something to do with Top Secret, that had the TSR trademark before, and they kind of took it because he didn't have the money to re-up it. So that was a little shady. And then, of course, Gary Gygax Jr.'s Ernie had those statements on Twitter that pissed some people off. And I don't know if it was him or the other one that called somebody disgusting. And I really think Ernie's statements were nothing to get upset about.
Right.
I mean, he basically just said, we want to worry about old school games, not worry about politics. And then he made the faux pas, the big error. I don't want to worry about gender identity or identity politics. Oh my God, heaven forbid you don't want to worry about that. And then somebody on Twitter was like, hey, you need to say trans women are women and trans men are men. Dude, don't tell me what to say.
Right.
Literally. I mean, that's just not a thing.
Mhm.
So I think the TSR guys, it sounds very shady. I wouldn't give them any money. And by that I mean the Justin Lanasa, whatever the plan is. I don't think Ernie is the type of guy who was trying to bamboozle anybody, and I would trust Jim Ward and I would trust Larry Elmore with money, but this just sounds funny. Just a lot of the statements they said. And I thought the Twitter mob and the woke crew lost their minds over nothing. What'd you think?
Yeah, pretty much all that. As far as I'm concerned, when TSR, the new TSR, said TSR is back, or
right,
TSR has returned, that's pretty much not true.
Dude, and people were like saying, dude, we're finally going to have AD&D 3rd edition.
They're not saving D&D. They don't have any of the IP. They only have the trademark.
Yep.
As 10 cards gone over in pretty deep detail.
Deep detail.
And, you know, it's, I posted, that's a misnomer to somebody. TSR ended up blocking me, which is hilarious, on Twitter. And so I wouldn't give them my money on a pre-order.
No.
If Giant Lands comes out and it is good,
yep,
and it doesn't have any politics associated with it, I may buy it.
Right.
But I'm not going to give them money based on nostalgia and thinking they're saving D&D. I'm not.
And they made several statements that made it sound like they were like gonna bring back all these games that WotC hasn't published in forever. It's like they can't make Star Frontiers.
Also, their Twitter, whoever's handling their social media accounts, they switched it over to somebody else. I think I heard that.
Yeah. Well,
but I didn't know I didn't know that they did all that other stuff with their.
Well, it was like a 5-minute blurb. Eric was taking his wife somewhere, and I saw it just when I was throwing frisbee with my dog around 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock, and I couldn't believe that they said they took it off. And I Googled something real quick, and I noticed their symbol was Giant Lands, GL, not TSR anymore. But I don't know if that's the full thing. So, then I hit the Facebook page on my phone, and I thought I sort of found it, but the TSR mark was red and down in the corner. I don't know what happened, but maybe something's happened. And I've been running his mouth for so long, and maybe WotC said, "Hey, look, if you want to start something, there can be something."
I mean, what are they going to do?
I don't know. Well, I mean,
they don't need to do anything.
There was talk of
Wizards can just say, we'll keep selling our games.
Muddling the brand. Something about muddling the brand. Eric said that's a thing that they can, if you start to muddy the water. It's like the reason that Gygax didn't get to publish Dangerous Dimensions or got stopped was because it was DD.
Yeah, that was that. That was then, though. I don't know if that would fly these days.
I don't know either, but
that's subjective. That's up to a judge. Yeah. There's not a consistent rule. It is in the opinion of the judge. So if you get a friendly judge, a judge friendly to Wizards of the Coast, which is possible, they'll say, hey, this is no good, which I would not care for. If you have a trademark, you should be able to use it.
Correct.
You've acquired it. I mean, maybe they didn't acquire it exactly. They did it legally, but shady from the point of view, I understand they had a relationship of some sort with the, and then they jumped on it without saying, hey, do you want this or not? I mean, you don't have to do that.
No, you don't.
There's no rule. So legally they're fine.
But in a small little pond like the gaming community, I mean, really tiny, you would think you'd want to be cool.
Play nice. Yeah.
Play nice. Did you hear? I mean, if you got more to say, that's all I want to say.
The only thing that I heard, and I didn't hear everything, and when TSR blocked me, of course, I didn't see any of that stuff. After that, I didn't see any of their stuff. But from what I
believe you got blocked.
Yeah. I said one other thing. I can't remember now. Ernie went on to say in another Twitter thread that, if he had an automatic weapon in his violin case when people were laughing at him, he probably would have pulled it out and shot them all, or something to that effect.
Some dumb.
You know, he probably shouldn't say stuff online.
He probably shouldn't. But you know,
the gender stuff, who cares? You shouldn't care. You shouldn't be bothered by it.
Not a thing.
But if you're saying stuff, even that you're saying, I mean, you shouldn't. He doesn't. You don't suspend his account because of it. But you're like, people should just avoid him.
When I was a kid, when he was a kid, if he felt that way a little bit, you could kind of say, okay, kids are highly emotional.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that. But as an adult, yeah, you shouldn't say that. And what about the whole, do you think though suspending him and TSR from Gen Con and other gaming conventions, that seems wrong too. That seems overreaction.
It is an overreaction, but it's not unexpected.
No, because they want to please a certain political team.
Yeah, I mean, the belief is that TSR is grounded in racism, and because Ernie said the stuff about, he didn't say things disparaging about trans people per se. He just was like gender, the whole gender thing. He laughed about that. So
he wanted to stay out of that arena in his games. Oh my God, you must say this is true. Yeah. Shut up. But did you hear about the Fantasy Grounds thing that turned out to be nothing?
No.
On the Conservative RPG Facebook thing, there was Fantasy Grounds. We thought it was from Fantasy Grounds, the statement about how old grognards and stuff, they were talking about somebody in Fantasy Grounds wanted to give them a little 2 or 3 hour seminar on how to run games now in the current climate with the current players to kind of fix their screwed up ideas. And boy, that got ugly fast. And some folks reached out, and a Fantasy Grounds dude actually responded, hey, that's not us. That's another Facebook group that made that comment. We don't have any opinion about whether you're conservative or not, or whether you're an old grognard. You play the games the way you want on Fantasy Grounds. We don't care.
Right.
You buy our stuff, you do what you want.
Sometimes people have raw nerves.
Mm-hmm.
And even if someone from Fantasy Grounds had said that, I wouldn't be mad. I would just say, move it along. I'll play it on some other platform.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be annoyed, but that's about it. At this point, I'm not expending that much energy on this crap, because it's of course they're going to try to get the folks at TSR, new TSR, to bend their knee because of brand recognition, the perception that TSR is rooted in white supremacy. Untrue.
D&D was bad from the beginning. Yeah. Sexist, racist, whatever.
It was made by a bunch of white guys, so of course it has.
Of course it's bad. Of course it is.
Okay, all untrue, all stupid, but not unexpected, because that's how they think.
Yep.
So if me and you actually put together a company and actually had a product to put out, they wouldn't care at all.
No, because we're nobody.
We're nobody.
And if they do care, if they do care, I'd be like, hey, maybe we're not completely nobodies.
Right.
We're like mostly nobody.
Mostly. So because it's TSR and they hyped themselves as being a return.
They did.
They kind of did it to themselves.
Yeah, they did.
Instead of, like I was suggesting, they probably should have kept it low key until they actually had a product.
And what did you think of Avengers' letter to the conventions?
I didn't read it because I don't care.
Yeah, I understand, because conventions aren't a thing for you. For me, I think it's kind of a good thing. Just asking them straightforward, are you going to have an issue with conservative gamers? I'd be shocked if any of them say yes.
Oh, I'd be shocked if many of them even respond.
Oh, he's already got a response from GameHole and GaryCon.
Oh.
GameHole said, hey, you don't cause any trouble, you're welcome. We don't want harassment. Everybody's welcome to play here.
Okay.
Which is cool. We'll see. Yeah. Anyway, just a couple interesting things. So that's the kind of negative stuff, getting our soapbox a little bit. And I understand Joe not caring about the convention thing. And honestly, I'll probably never go to a convention again either. But and when they banned Ernie, I kind of said, not going to Gen Con anymore was probably a good decision for me.
I after this kind of thing was going around with TSR, I kind of just read a bunch of different people's takes on Twitter,
Yeah.
Because of course that reflects the real world.
It does. Like 1% of 1%.
But there are an awful amount of people who are reasonable.
Yep.
There are a few outspoken nutheads. There
Mm-hmm.
are very reactionary people on both sides.
On both sides.
And I'm not going to be that because it's not worth it.
No.
I'm going to play the way I'm going to play, and you can't stop me.
Yep.
I mean, the general you. There's nothing. I can open my book, and the pages turn. The words just are still there. I can read them, and then facilitate a game. My dice roll.
Dice. You have dice. You have pencils. You have friends who will play with you.
It all operates correctly,
no matter what you think.
So some rando on the internet saying you can't play that way because it's problematic does not affect what happens at my table.
Not even a little bit. You know, Joe, and I'm starting to feel it too. Maybe we'll have less and less. Well, we've had less recently negative material playing segments, even though you said it does help our listenership when we whinge and moan.
I don't know. It's hard to tell.
I know it is.
I don't know. Anchor numbers, it goes from, like I was saying the other day, they go from a low of 48 to as high as they've been as high as 91. And
Okay.
I don't know what that means.
Probably 6.
We get people calling in, so
we do. We got good callers.
Some people.
We got good callers. We got good, but we made some friends. I consider them friends.
Yeah.
And they're cool. I mean, anybody that's called in, anybody we've talked to in the podcast, only a couple folks. I would play D&D with any of them, any kind of game.
Right.
That's cool. So
right. And the other thing is this: I don't know why they spent so much time on this new TSR when there was no clear indication that they were going to have anything to offer.
I believe they have a Kickstarter for Giant Lands.
Kickstarter's over with. It's they're doing pre-orders, and they might have what's that backer kit thing going on? Maybe as well. And
and dude, what about
it's
that?
Already way late. It's already.
They wanted $100. They wanted $100, and they got 3,000. And they talked about this great percentage they made.
8,000.
Oh, 8,000, yeah. But what percentage of money they made over what they expected? But when Eric pointed that out, they were only looking to get $100. That was a cheese move.
Yeah.
Just so they could say, look, we got so much over what we expected. Yeah, you're going to do a hardback book of, I don't know, 300-400 pages, probably what it looks like. And you think you're going to do it with $100? No, you're not. And why, if you can do it with $100, why are you even kickstarting it? Because that means you got the cash in hand. So anywho, yeah, you're right. It's probably a lot to do about nothing.
Yeah.
In the end.
Because at the end of the day, do they have anything? Are they going to have anything? I mean, the folks that gave their money, I hope that they get something out of it.
They get some, yeah, I know. And Eric's going to do a podcast soon. He did a little bit of one already when he's going to talk about how to look for signs. I think this is very useful when Tankar talks about signs of podcasts. He's kind of a hawk. He watches the Kickstarters out there and catches those, questionable players. And he's talking about there's things you can look for when they say certain things and mention certain things that the Kickstarter may not fulfill. And so I'm excited when he does that because I do want to watch myself.
If who does Bones?
Rolling Bones, Ryan Howard.
Reaper. No, Bones.
Oh,
Reaper. So if Reaper puts out Bones, you know what's going to happen. It might be late. It's good. They have a good track record.
If you want to give them $500, you're getting $800 worth of stuff.
So if Jason of the Nerds RPG Variety Cast says he's putting something out, I would be comfortable kickstarting this thing. Anybody else like that, where he's a known quantity to me, I'm comfortable with that. But if I don't know you from anybody, I'm not kickstarting your stuff.
And if something happened where Jason couldn't fulfill it, I would think, oh, something must have happened. Jason, he wasn't trying to screw us out of $700 or whatever he was trying. He wasn't trying to screw people out of the $1,000 because, and even there was somebody Eric talked about. He said the guy was very sorry he didn't do it. He couldn't fulfill it, and he came clean. He lost a lot of cred, but he wasn't trying to hide. Right. He mismanaged the funds. He's like, I should have done this, and I messed it up, and I'm sorry, and I can't do anything about it, but I apologize. Like, that sucks, but at least he owned it. Somebody like Monty Cook. Not that I buy his stuff, but you can trust him. Yeah, dude, Cook's going to deliver.
Yeah, he's going to deliver.
Who is it? Pinnacle, they're going to deliver.
Yeah.
DCC, they're going to deliver. So, yeah. But other places, I get really nervous these days because I've been burned a couple of times. I don't think they were conscious burns, but I got burned. So, all right. I think that's all I want to talk about.
All right.
All right, man. Done with the negative.
We are done. And if you're still listening, thank you for listening.
Absolutely.